Okay, everybody listening to us on Facebook, thanks for joining in. My name is Sean Harrington. I wrote Tarrytown Tales. We'll be starting the read-through in about 5 minutes. We're doing a little bit of testing here to make sure everybody's set. We've got a couple folks who are going to change their actor names to their character names. We're actually on Zoom, even though most of you are watching us on Facebook. We have a couple of folks who are serving as moderators and should be able to boot in case we get any weirdos who start texting anything.
Aside from us.
Yeah, aside from us, yes.
Yeah.
So let's see. Let's go ahead and do some introductions. Again, my name is Sean Harrington. I wrote Tarrytown Tales about 3 years ago. The script has been table read a couple of different times. Both times at Simi Valley Cultural Arts Center, and we are also streaming through their Simi Valley Virtual Arts Center page as well tonight. So I wanted to have a show that allowed me to do something that could be done with puppets, but also could be open, that elementary schools or small theater groups who didn't have much in terms of production budgets could do the show and do it through what's known as storyteller theater. So you'll notice that a lot of what is described in terms of the action is spoken by the narrators, and each of our actors is both a narrator and then 2 or 3 additional characters on top of that. We've had to modify the script a little bit. We've found that there are some limitations to what Zoom can and can't do. We won't be able to do sound effects like we'd want, but we do have some folks speaking some of those key sound effects. Group speak doesn't work really well for crowd scenes, so we've actually limited some of those for some folks. I'm going to start to introduce the folks. I'm just going to go in my Brady Bunch format here that I see on my screen. In my upper left-hand corner, we've got Farley Cadena. She's playing Dame, Baroness, and Jane. Farley, give us a wave.
Oh, hi. Hi, everybody.
Cool. Next is Daniel Krause. He's playing Crane, Knick, and Franz, and a couple of others. Nick, give us a wave.
Darn good to be here.
Excellent. Next is Mary Zastrow. She'll be playing Katrina, Anna, Martha, and some other surprises. Next is my friend Dan McGeehan. I've known him for many years. We did theater back in Tulsa way back in the day. He'll be playing Old Rip, Adam, and Nicholas Vedder.
Thank you.
Next is Andy Mattick. He'll be playing Brom Bones, Giles, and Herman. Paulette Record is Rose, Nan, and a couple of other folks as well too.
Nice to see you all.
Good to see you. Kyle Harrington is Young Rip, also known as Rip Jr. Yes, you.
Hi, Dad.
Hi, Dad. Great. Tip our hat there.
Give
Yes,
it away.
I'm patting the cast with my family and the audience too. I guess my daughter is also listening to. Next up is Lorraine MacDonald. She'll be playing Tessa, Lotte, and others. Then we've got Nancy McGeehan. She'll be playing Judy, Sabine, Maggie, and a couple of other surprises. And
Hello.
last but certainly not least is Larry Shilkoff. He'll be playing Louis,
Hello.
Peter, and Baltus. All right, let's see. It's 5:06. I don't see why we shouldn't get this thing started. Cast, whenever you're ready,
Okay.
go ahead and give it a start.
The decades following the war between the colonies and England were a dangerous and awkward time.
In these uncertain times, allegiances were always suspect, especially those of foreigners, and everyone was a foreigner. Dutch, German, English, Spanish, French.
And as it happens in the hamlet of Tarrytown, a cozy Dutch settlement in the banks of Hudson River.
Things were in particular disarray.
Dark forces at work.
The silky web of time and space had folded back on itself.
As if a captive moth, desperate to escape, had perturbed the weave,
Whilst the silent arachnid host worked to mend and smooth the fabric.
never quite restoring the original perfect pattern. For it was in the heart of Tarrytown, at Jonathan Doolittle's Union Tavern, that our twisted tales begin.
On the carved sign above the door, the smiling face of General George Washington, his blue hat cocked slightly askew, and a sword held bravely in his right hand.
Even though he was left-handed.
And although the name George was carved neatly beneath,
the abbreviation Gen
Period.
and Wash
Period.
were painted awkwardly above the rosy-cheeked figure.
featured on both the east and west sides of the sign, so that comers and goers alike could find this bastion of quaint Dutch hospitality.
On the flagpole above, a freshly stitched banner of red and white woolen stripes.
In the upper left, a navy blue square with a halo of 13 tiny white stars lovingly embroidered.
Old glory, stars and stripes.
Doolittle's tavern always hummed a busy, bustling, disputatious tone, but this afternoon in particular, a lean, bilious-looking fellow with his pockets full of handbills was haranguing vehemently about the rights of citizens.
Elections.
Members of Congress.
Liberty!
Yeah!
Bunkers Hill.
Heroes of 76.
Aye!
Here.
When all at once the revelry was silenced by the abrupt entrance of a spindly old man with a long grizzled beard, a rusty musket, and tattered uncouth dress.
Where's Nicholas Vedder?
An odd question.
Nicholas Vedder?
Old Nick Vedder? Why, he is dead and gone these 18 years. There was a wooden tombstone in the churchyard that used to tell all about him, but that's rotten and gone too.
That was long ago.
Yeah, so long.
We're holding an election here.
Are you federal or Democrat?
Now we'll discover that soon enough.
What brings you to this election with a gun on your shoulder?
A mob at your heels.
He means to breed a riot in the village.
Oh. Here, let him speak. What are you, sir?
Alas, I am a poor, quiet man, a native of this place.
I've never seen you before.
I am a loyal subject of the king, God save him.
Oh, down with him!
Spy! Take his gun.
Hustle him away.
No, I mean no harm. I come here in search of some of my neighbors who used to keep about this very tavern.
Well, who are they?
Name them.
Well, Nicholas
Vedder. Aye, we heard you. He's dead and gone.
Oh, well, where's Brom Dutcher?
From who?
From Abraham Dutcher? He went off to the army in the beginning of the war.
Oh, miss him so.
Oh, wasn't he killed at the storming of Stony Point?
I heard he was drowned in a squall at the foot of Antony's nose.
Point was, he never came back again.
Where is Van Bummel, the schoolmaster?
He went off to the wars too.
He was a great militia general.
He's in Congress now.
Not after this election.
Democrat.
Federal!
The point is, he's not here anymore.
Got a brand new schoolmaster.
And you're fresh out of Friends, stranger.
Well, doesn't anyone here know poor Rip Van Winkle?
Rip Van Winkle? Well, to be sure.
Oh, thank the Lord.
That's Rip Van Winkle yonder in the corner.
God knows. I'm not myself. I'm somebody else. That's me yonder? No. That's somebody else got into my shoes.
Here now, sir, what's your name?
I was myself last night, but I fell asleep on the mountain and they changed my gun.
Careful, keep it away from him.
It's rusted, frozen. He'll shoot nothing with no one with this.
Everything's changed, and I'm changed.
How do you know my brother Rip?
I can't tell you what my name is or who I am.
Watch yourself, Judy. He's mad.
Hush, you fool. The old man won't hurt you.
What is your name, my good woman?
Judith Cardinier.
And your father's name?
Oh, poor man. Rip Van Winkle was his name, but it was 20 years since he went away from home with his gun and has never been heard of since. His dog came home without him.
Wolf! Where's my good dog, Wolf?
That was our dog's name, Judy. I forgot his name.
Our father never came back, sir, and whether he shot himself or was carried away by the Indians, no one can tell. I was but a schoolgirl.
It's true.
Where's your mother?
Dead a short time since, rest her soul, but burst a blood vessel in a fit of rage, screaming at a peddler on this very street.
Aye, sounds like Maggie, rest her soul.
Reminder that we are in the middle of a caucus, my friends, and while this is all quite interesting...
Judy, it's me. I'm your father, Rip.
What?
Young Rip Van Winkle once. Old Rip Van Winkle now.
Oh, no, that's ridiculous.
Doesn't nobody know poor Rip Van Winkle?
Sure enough. It is Rip Van Winkle. Looks just like his son.
What say you, Peter van der Donk?
Aye, Peter, you're the eldest in town.
Do you recognize this man as Rip Van Winkle?
Senior?
Senior?
It is himself. Welcome home again, old neighbor. Why, where have you been these 20 long years?
Our father? How can it be?
Certainly looks like him.
If you're my father, what did you used to say to us whenever you would come home from hunting?
Phineas, Panicus, poor man, peasant.
Woodcock, partridge, quail, and pheasant.
Stuff with peas and carrots, please.
There's
nothing else more
pleasant. Father!
It's me, Judy.
Oh,
No wonder.
Where have you been?
Rip Van Winkle began to regale the crowd with a fantastic tale of strange bearded men, a game of ninepins with balls that rumbled like distant thunder, and a rather potent keg of Dutch ale.
Some shrugged the stories off as the ramblings of a deranged old fool.
Many listened intently at every word that floated from Van Winkle's lips.
Rip would go on to tell his story time and again in the same tavern,
piquing the supernatural imagination of both old and young alike.
But it was at this first telling, as afternoon turned to evening on a breezy fall election day in 1795, that Rip's story caught the ear of the most superstitious
and supercilious figure in all of Tarrytown, the schoolmaster.
Ichabod Crane.
A point of clarification, sir. Are we to believe that upon drinking from this keg of ale that you fell asleep for 20 years?
Must have been some ale.
Father was never one to turn away drink.
But even so, 20 years, he'd have been eaten by bears.
After 20 years, he'd have been eaten by snails.
I know, I can't explain it myself, but here I am, 20 years lapsed and not a memory of it.
It's magic it is.
What?
I'll wager old Rip stumbled upon the ghostly burial ground of Captain Hendrick Hudson and his crew.
Nay, 'twas the Manitou, as payback for trespassing on sacred hunting grounds.
I don't know what it was. I can't remember anything.
Admit it. You wanted to get away from that shrew of a wife and those mewling brats of yours. You were lazy then and you're double lazy now.
No, I believe you, Mr. Van Winkle.
Oh, thank you, Mr.
Crane, schoolmaster.
All right, the caucusing is over. If you're not eating or buying drinks, out with you. There's paying customers waiting to get in.
Judy, Rip, what's happened to our house?
We fell in after Mother died. Been meaning to fix it one of these days.
He's been staying with us in the barn, Father. You're welcome to stay there for the night.
But where will I sleep?
You'll make room for your father, Rip. And tomorrow, you too can start repairing the roof.
Oh, thank you.
Mrs. Cardinier, Mr. Van Winkle, there happens to be a spare cot in the mudroom of my cottage, which you're welcome to use. I could use the company, and I'd be most interested in hearing more of your story.
That would be a relief. Are you sure that wouldn't be too much trouble, schoolmaster?
I'm sure it's only temporary until Mr. Van Winkle can effect repairs to the roof of your family cottage.
Yes, of course, but only until Rip and I get our roof repaired.
Oh, about that. I actually have an important meeting tomorrow regarding the unique business.
What business opportunity?
A fishing expedition, actually.
Rip Van Winkle, you'll get up at the crack of dawn and start fixing that roof. I'll see you home, Rip. Will you come around for breakfast, Father?
Yes, of course.
This way, Mr. Van Winkle.
Oh, call me Rip, please, Mr. Crane.
Well, Rip. And you may call me Jeffrey.
Jeffrey?
Ichabod is a family name.
So the townsfolk call you...
As schoolmaster. That and a variety of other barbs. Intellect is a blessing and a curse, I suppose. I've few peers in this backwards little...
Is your cottage, is it far? My bones are a bit creakier than they were yesterday. Or, well...
before you fell asleep. Yes, well, it's not far. Across the field from the schoolhouse.
What, down in Sleepy Hollow?
Yes. Why, have you heard the stories?
What? None such. Only that it's a good mile or two. Don't you have a horse?
No need. I've no place to keep a horse. And it's too expensive. Schoolmaster's budget and all.
But how do you...
On rare occasions, I borrow gunpowder.
Oh, for hunting?
Oh, no. Gunpowder is the name of old Van Ripper's plow horse.
Hans Van Ripper? Is he still alive?
Yes, and surly as a badger.
Oh, heavens. He was old when I knew him. Pray, what tales were you speaking of?
What?
About Sleepy Hollow.
Oh, well, surely you'd have heard of them.
Yes, I've heard stories of spirits, but none specific to the Hollow.
Not even tales of the spirit horseman that haunts the woods therein?
None such.
I dare not speak of it now. Moon's waning full. Truth be told, I'm glad of your company tonight.
Oh.
Oh, what?
The church bell signals midnight. I don't even know what day of the week.
It is today, Saturday, October 31st, 1795.
All Hallows Eve?
Well, yes. Tomorrow evening, tonight, later, after today.
Pray, is your cottage much farther, Mr. Crane?
Just ahead.
Oh.
Only wolves, Mr. Crane, not spirits.
Yes, only wolves. Perhaps we should hurry ourselves indoors. This way, Rip.
Both Rip Van Winkle and the schoolmaster Ichabod Crane
Jeffrey
slept easier knowing that the other was but a room away.
Rip Van Winkle, having spent the past 20 years dreaming of nothing specific, now found himself enjoying a light and lucid sleep.
Dreams of newfound sights and sounds filled his dusty brain like a young housewife moving into her first kitchen.
And having wasted half his life through sleeping in through breakfast, it was no wonder that Rip knocked on the door of his daughter's cottage bright and early the next morning.
Oh, Judy, is anyone home?
Who goes there?
Rip Van Winkle.
Well, this is a surprise. Come to help with the chores finally?
The frightfully disfigured face that appeared at the farmhouse door was that of Louis Cardinier, Judy's husband. The shocked stare that froze Rip Van Winkle's glance was familiar to Louis, the same stunned mask that hundreds of others had donned through the years. For most, it melted into an awkward aversion of the eyes. For some, particularly young children, the reaction was more traumatic.
Yes,
You are not Rip.
Oh, but I am.
No, you are not.
Oh, I am.
Then you have a rough night at Doolittle's Tavern?
I am Rip Van Winkle Sr. Didn't Judy tell you about me?
Oh, yes, but I was half asleep and thought I had dreamed it.
Well, it's all true, even though I can't explain it. You must be Judy's husband.
Louis Cardinier, yes.
Did I know you as a young man here in Tarrytown?
What, before you...
Fell asleep for 20 years, yes.
No, I do not think so.
Pardon me for asking, but you look...
Hello? Louis?
Judy, good morning. Mr. Cardinier and your husband and I were just getting acquainted.
Louis, where is Rip?
He is right here.
Oh, Junior. Where's Rip Jr.?
In the barn, still sleeping, no doubt.
Go wake him up, Louis. Please, my dear.
Anything for you, ma chérie.
He's
my rock since Mother died. Here, let me get you some breakfast, Father.
Oh, you don't have to call me that. I don't deserve it.
Nonsense. That's what you are, aren't you?
Calling you daughter, I haven't earned...
Judy. Call me Judy.
Judy. How long have you been married?
2 years now. No, nearly 3 years. And before you ask, no, we have not been blessed with children yet. We'd like to start a family, but...
You'll be a fine mother when the time comes, Judy. Mrs. Cardinier.
And as it is, Rip, that is the son of yours, he's child enough. He drove Mother mad with rage, lazy about, takes after you, you know.
I know. I apologize. Maggie was right. I should have done more when I was here, and then it all flew by in an instant.
Well, you can make amends by fixing the roof on the cottage and get Rip out of my barn before winter. Oh, first thing, pull down the old thatch and drag it to the burn pile. The walls and posts are still good.
Oh, built by old Van Houten himself. Best purchase I ever made. Cash paid in full. No loan. That's the one thing I did right by your mother.
Yes. Well, I'll have Louis bring some wood for the purlins. Lucky for you, old Baltus Van Tassel's got some pitch left over, and he said it's ours for the taking.
Baltus Van Tassel? He's a good man. Glad to hear he's still alive and kicking. How's Dame Van Tassel?
They're doing very well. They have a daughter, Katrina, just turned 19. Oh, mind you, get the fire started straight away and that pitch kettle warmed up.
Rip Jr. is coming. Mr. Van Winkle, there should be a ladder in the cottage woodshed. I will be by later.
Oh, I told him. Thank you, mon chéri. Rip, get a move on. You'll have no breakfast. It's going to be a long day on an empty stomach.
Where's my fishing pole?
You'll have that back when the roof is done and you're out of my barn.
I should like to lodge a formal complaint with the management that my personal effects should not have been stolen.
Here, you will simmer down and go to work with your father on that roof.
No. Rip, come, let's get busy. Shorter days now than in the summer, but at least the weather is pleasant. Come, son, what do you say?
Don't call me that. As for you, Mr. and Mrs. Cardinier, I've decided I don't care to live in your smelly old barn any longer. Now, what do you say about that?
Why, you ungrateful, lazy...
Oh, dear.
Oh, Louis won't hurt him. But you best run after them, otherwise you'll be fixing the roof alone. Here, take this for later. I'll be by with Louis in a bit. Goodbye, Father.
Thank you. Goodbye, Judy.
Our story moves to the Van Tassel farm, where our schoolmaster, Ichabod Crane, is visiting the lady of the house, Dame Van Tassel,
who is engrossed tending to the final arrangements for the Van Tassel All Hallows Eve party, an annual Tarrytown tradition.
Baltus Van Tassel holds this party as a means of showing off his home, his wife, his wealth, and his very available daughter, Katrina Van Tassel.
all the available men in town. And while the schoolmaster was available...
And a man.
None in town considered Ichabod to be a serious contender for Katrina's hand. That position of honor was generally conceded to a burly, roaring, roistering blade by the name of Abraham van Brunt.
He was broad-shouldered and double-jointed, with short, curly black hair and a bluff, handsome face. From his Herculean frame and great power of limb, he had received the nickname Brombones.
And it was on this busy Saturday morning, on the last day of October, that the schoolmaster paid his regular visit to the Van Tassel farmhouse for administering singing lessons to the tragically tone-deaf Katrina.
Die hier ist mein Herder, mein Sonne von Dreck, heifig meine Hohen Weiden. Lass mir rüsten an Hervatar,
Mr. Crane, what say we give Katrina a bit of a rest?
Yes.
Oh, but I've just started, Father. I want to be perfect for church tomorrow.
Indeed, Miss Van Tassel, your voice shall ring out like the bells in the steeple.
That's for certain.
Baltus.
I'm not certain the congregation is ready for Katrina's talents.
Please, who are we to deprive the good people of Tarrytown of the golden voice of this nightingale?
Oh, go on, Mr. Crane.
Call me Geoffrey.
Ichabod Crane. What a surprise seeing you here.
Mr. Van Brunt, pleasure, as usual.
Katrina.
Mr. Van Brunt.
Oh, Cat, why don't you call me Brommie anymore, like when you were a girl?
Because I'm a grown woman now, and it would be most imprudent.
What brings you by, Brom? Coming to the party tonight?
Wouldn't miss it for the world. No, Daredevil and I were riding by just now when we heard an awful caterwaul. Sounded like that old tabby cat got under someone's boot, screeching something fierce.
I'll have you know that was Miss Van Tassel singing, Mr. Van Brunt.
Mr. Crane, I told you, I can't carry a tune. If I sing in front of the congregation tomorrow, I'll be an embarrassment.
Sensible girl, our Katrina.
Baltus.
Mr. Van Brunt, she has been working very hard at this, and now you've ruined it. Miss Van Tassel, wait.
Well, I feel like a heel.
Come, Brom. How were you to know that screeching tabby cat was our daughter?
More like a yowling tabby cat.
You're not helping, good sir.
Mr. Van Tassel, I feel terrible. How do I make it up to her?
Oh, nonsense, Brom. Katrina will have forgotten all about it by the party tonight. Mr. Crane will cheer her up.
That's true. He always does.
Ichabod Crane. Why is he always there to cheer her up? I'm the one who makes her feel bad.
Well, you could be a bit more...
That was rhetorical, ma'am.
Here, Brom. A woman needs to feel protected by her man. You can be a bit of a...
A bull in a bakery.
So more genteel, like the schoolmaster. That'll be a cold day.
Mr. Van Brunt, you have insulted our dear Katrina. She's run off into the house and locked herself in her room, crying.
I apologize. I didn't know.
No excuses, you ruffian. I challenge you to a duel of wits.
A duel?
Of wits. Tonight, I challenge you to a fright fest. Whomever shall tell the most frightening, bone-chilling ghost story shall be proclaimed the winner.
Of what?
Katrina's hand?
No, Katrina's not a prize to be won. What are your stakes, Mr. Crane?
If I tell the best story, not only will you praise Katrina in her singing efforts, you will also join the church choir yourself as my pupil.
Well, when I win, you'll stop wasting Katrina's time with these ridiculous singing lessons and tell her the truth, that she can't sing.
It's only fair, Mr. Crane.
It'll break her heart, Baltus.
Well, it won't happen because I am going to tell a story so frightening that no one will sleep for weeks after. Are we on, Mr. Van Brunt?
Oh, we are on, schoolmaster.
Now, While Brom Bones appeared to fit the mold of a typical thick-headed Tarrytown bumpkin, he was anything but. Although he and his band of hooligans had wrought chaos throughout the town from their youngest days, Abraham von Brunt was secretly an exceptional student with a keen mind.
And it was under the tutelage of the former schoolmaster, Derek van Bummel, that young Brom spent most afternoons covertly learning under the guise of punishment, absorbing the intricacies of Plato, Pythagoras, Bosch, and Beethoven. For Van Bummel was one of those rare and exceptional teachers who could motivate and mold a malleable yet mischievous mind.
The day Van Bummel left to join General Washington's troops in Yorktown, he hired Brom to run his farm in his absence. At the peak of the war, 13-year-old Brom Bones stood 6 feet tall and weighed nearly 180 pounds, a prime candidate for soldierhood. But it was Van Bummel who gave him reason to stay in Sleepy Hollow where it was safe.
Among Brom Bones' band of malcontents, Rip Van Winkle Jr. was easily the most forgettable, or at least he would have been, were it not for the mysterious disappearance of his father, Rip Jr., who was perpetually the pity of Tarrytown.
Poor boy, no father to teach him.
Laziest creature in town, and it's all because of his father.
That's what comes from idle hands.
Young Rip hated attention. Contrary to what most believed, it was not laziness, but aversion to attention that was the chief fault in his character.
Left to his own devices, he could have finished repairing the roof alone years ago in a day, but the Van Winkle farmhouse happened to lay on the main road. So a constant barrage of comments, suggestions, and insipid questions initiated by nosy travelers made an already tedious job a nightmare for the reclusive Rip Jr.
You're going to need more pitch on those reeds.
The angle on that beam is all wrong.
Shouldn't you have torn down that part before you started?
Why don't you make it taller?
Enough! I quit!
Rip, what's the matter?
What do they know? What are they to tell me how to fix my roof?
Pay them no mind. We're nearly finished the back. Louis will bring in more straw and we'll finish the front and we'll be done.
I wish we had a taller fence.
But then we'd never get to meet our neighbors.
I hate living in the main road. Wish this place would burn to the ground like Ducker's barn. Why didn't you build it further back?
You think I built this place? No. I bought it outright. It didn't used to be on the main road, but lucky for your mother and I, we always had good crops to sell.
Which she tended, not you.
Yes, I should have helped more on the farm, but we were a good team, your mother and I.
I've had enough.
Rip, please, help me finish this. I can't do it without you.
If you'd shut your mouth and let me work in peace.
I promise, I won't talk to you. I'll even distract anyone who happens by so you don't have to say a word. Deal?
Not a word, old man.
Old man. That's for certain.
Not a word.
Rip?
Yes?
Not you, sir. It's your son I'm after.
Oh.
What do you want, Brom?
That schoolmaster's challenged me to a duel.
I told you he's crazy.
Like a fox, he's challenged me to a duel of words.
What brought this on? Mr. Crane doesn't strike me as one to make idle threats.
I may have insulted Katrina Van Tassel, and he leapt to her defense like a grumpy gender guarding his goose.
Well, everyone knows she's your goose, Brom.
But how did you insult her?
Riding past, I thought I heard a cat yowling behind the house. Turns out it was Katrina singing, or something like singing.
Well, what do you need me for?
You know stories. Ghost stories. The schoolmaster has challenged me to the scariest story tonight at Van Tassel's party. If I win, he must admit that Katrina can't sing.
And if you lose?
I not only publicly admit to Katrina's talent, I also join the church choir myself.
Oh, now, what's so bad about that, Brom?
I'd rather drown myself than spend every Saturday morning in church listening to Katrina's caterwauling. Rip, surely you've got a doozy of a story I can tell.
You don't already know.
Please.
Brom Bones, are you distracting them from finishing the roof?
No, ma'am. I'm just seeking a little advice.
Here, Rip, fresh load of hay. Best step up the pace if you want to finish before dusk.
Off you go, Brom.
But
Off, I said.
Rip, any ideas?
Goodbye.
My, you two have done a lot. Keep this pace up and you'll be done in an hour. I'll be back and help you sweep up. We'll see about getting you moved in here tonight.
But it's All Hallows Eve.
And? What? Don't tell me you're planning on showing up to Van Tassel's party tonight.
I haven't decided just yet.
I should mention that I took the liberté to move.
Liberty.
Liberty. How you say?
Liberty.
Liberty. Anyway, your belongings are out of my barn and waiting in the cart. You have been evicted, my brother-in-law.
Fine by me, I'll move them in myself.
Not until you've done with that roof. Father, what about your things?
I have nothing of value. Mr. Crane said he'd bring my musket, but other than that...
I'll bring some bedding. The chimney works?
Oh, no backups. Smoke goes up just fine. Thank you, Judy.
We'll be back. Get to work, brother.
Mr. Van Winkle.
Yeah.
Senior. Sir, a moment of your time?
Yes, you need a scary story to tell the party tonight so you can beat Brom Bones and win the heart of Katrina.
Brom Bones already came by, didn't he?
Yes. He was asking young Rip here if he knew a story for your duel.
And did you give him one?
It wasn't time. My sister ran him off before I could tell him one.
I see. So you're set against me too, then?
None such, schoolmaster. I was helping a friend. I have nothing against you.
I see. And you, Mr. Van Winkle?
Of course. I'll help you, Mr. Crane. You took me in, and I'd be happy to repay the kindness.
But do you have a story for me?
Yes.
Bone chilling.
Oh, yes, I think so. But I do have a roof to finish first. Where should I find you, Mr. Crane?
I'm off to borrow gunpowder, old Van Ripper's horse. What say my cottage at 6 o'clock?
Oh, I'll be exhausted, but yes. And I can get my rifle.
Yes, 6 o'clock. Thank you again.
He is an odd bird.
Yes, but he means well.
Although laziness was the hallmark of the male Van Winkle lineage, persistent needling by both Louis and Judy resulted in completion of the roof, just as the afternoon sun set.
As promised, old Rip met the schoolmaster at 6 o'clock and conveyed Ichabod a spook tale guaranteed to win him the challenge. Happy to repay his debt, Rip gathered his rusty old rifle, shook the schoolmaster's quavering hand to bid him luck, and headed home to his newly thatched cottage.
Old Rip spent dinner time beside his own fireplace, listening enraptured as Judy and Louis related tales of the 2 decades he'd lost while asleep on the mountain. Every so often, old Rip would steal a sideways glance at Louis, wondering what tragic event caused his disfigurement. His pity would dissipate when he caught the twinkle in his daughter's eyes, ignoring the scars and wrinkles etched into her lover's face, as if seeing through to his very soul.
Although young Rip Van Winkle was not one for parties, at Brom Bones' behest, he begrudgingly agreed to join the revelry at the Van Tassel farm, assigned to lurk in the shadows, waiting for cues from his friend.
Punctuate the tension of my ghostly tale with well-placed creak. Or moan. Or thump.
The complexity of young Rip's mission was lightened by the fact that the Van Tassel farmhouse now overflowed with guests whose primary charter was to eat and drink their fill.
As Ichabod entered the house, The conquest of his heart was complete. It was one of those spacious farmhouses with high-ridged but lowly sloping roofs, built in the style handed down from the first Dutch settlers.
Rows of resplendent pewter arranged on a long dresser dazzled the schoolmaster's eye. Ears of Indian corn, strings of dried apples and peaches hung in gay festoons along the walls, mingled with a shock of red peppers.
Decorating the mantelpiece were strings of various colored birds' eggs suspended above it, and a great ostrich egg hung unapologetically from the center of the room, a bold pronouncement of the eclectic wealth earned by the Van Tassels. And as the evening approached its joyous pinnacle, a rosy-cheeked,
Well-fed,
and modestly inebriated Baltus Van Tassel stepped proudly through the revelers to the center of the room.
Friends and neighbors.
Here, let him speak.
What? We can't hear you.
Pipe down, the lot of you!
Thank you, Brom. As you know, we Van Tassels enjoy having you here as our guests every Hallows Eve.
Hey!
Huzzah!
And I want to tip my hat to the two people without whom this celebration would simply not be possible. My lovely wife, Dame Van Tassel.
Good, very nice.
Of course.
And of course, my lovely Katrina, the light of our lives.
Well deserved.
Well deserved indeed. Hurrah!
Katrina, your mother and I wish only the best for you.
And a husband and grandchildren.
I'm game if you are, Cat.
I'm not certain I've made up my mind on the matter just yet, Abraham Van Brunt.
You'll have to work hard on that one, Brom.
Now, I don't want to interrupt the festivities for too long, only to offer a heartfelt thanks to each of you. The Van Tassel farm would be nothing without the support and hard work of the people in this community have shown since the war ended and long before. Thank you all.
Oh, huzzah!
Baltus! Baltus, the game!
Yes, I nearly forgot. It has been a long tradition at these parties to tell ghostly stories. Tonight, a bit of a challenge is on. Our schoolmaster, Mr. Crane, has challenged Brom Bones to see who can tell the scariest, most frightening story.
No idea.
What's the prize?
It's Katrina's hand in marriage.
That's not funny. What say you, Rip Van Winkle?
What?
Shall we have a dance before my future is handed off to one of these two men?
Cat.
Miss Van Tassel.
Dance with her, Van Winkle.
Yes, do so. Dance,
Start
dance.
the music!
Ichabod Crane and Brom Bones watched from the edges of the room as the couple swooped and spun to the sound of the music.
Katrina took delight in beaming broadly and laughing joyfully as she and Rip circled close to Brom and Ichabod. The schoolmaster was the first to relent. As a smile washed over his face, he began clapping joyously in time with the music, leaving the dour Brom alone in his misery.
Seeing the schoolmaster's change of heart, Katrina took pity on the mortified Rip Van Winkle, gleefully scooping up Ichabod to replace him.
Ichabod prided himself upon his dancing as much as upon his vocal powers. Not a limb, not a fiber about him was idle. The lady of his heart was his partner in the dance, smiling graciously in reply to all his amorous ogling. Bones, sorely smitten with love and jealousy, stood brooding by himself in one corner.
Very good, very good. As the song finally ended, it was Katrina Van Tassel who bid the contest commence.
Now, what say we get this Spooktail challenge underway?
Yes!
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 As the blue ribbon prize, it is my prerogative to choose the order in which our contestants will compete.
Miss Van Tassel, if Mr. Van Brunt agrees, there's no need to make this a contest. I would be happy to tell my story regardless.
Oh, no, no, no. Brom has accepted the challenge already. There's no turning back. Right, Mr. Van Brunt?
Sure, I'm up for the challenge, and I stand by the terms of the bargain. Do you as well, schoolmaster?
Of course he does. He's doing it for my honor. Aren't you, Ichabod?
Yes, but...
Then it's done. I choose Ichabod Crane to tell his ghost story first.
Yes,
Oh.
Ichabod!
Yes.
Go on, Ichabod. Scare us out of our shoes.
The Spectre Bridegroom.
Ooh, I like the sound of that one.
Yes. On the summit of Odenwald stands the castle of Baron von Landshort. It has now quite fallen to decay. However, its old watchtower still stands. The Baron was a dry branch of a great family of Katzenwellenbogen and inherited all the relics of the property with all the pride of his ancestors.
Just like you, Baltus.
Now let's let our schoolmaster tell his tale. Go on, Mr. Crane.
The Baron had but one child, a daughter, but nature, when she grants but one child, always compensates by making it a prodigy. By the time she was 18, she could embroider to admiration and know all the tender German love ballads by heart.
Just like Katrina.
The Baron had a large soul and loved to tell long stories about the dark old warriors whose portraits looked down grimly from the walls around. He was much given to the marvelous and a firm believer in all supernatural tales with every mountain and valley in Germany abounds.
Sounds like my kind of Baron, eh?
Baltus, behave.
There was a great family gathering at the castle to receive the destined bridegroom of the Baron's daughter. The young couple were betrothed without seeing each other, as was the custom, and the date for the marriage ceremony was set. The young Count von Altenburg had been recalled from the army and was on his way to receive the bride.
Well, that can't be Brum Bones. He never was in the army.
Please, this is a ghost story, not an allegory to the Van Tassel family history. Pipe down. Please, continue, Mr. Crane.
Thank you, Dame Van Tassel. The castle was in a tumult of preparation. The fair bride looked as lovely as any youthful bridegroom could desire. Baroness von Landshort was busied in preparations. She had, in truth, nothing exactly to do, but could not remain passive when all the world was in a hurry. She worried from top to bottom of the castle with an air of infinite anxiety.
I must admit, that does sound about the way I'll behave before Katrina's wedding.
Mother!
The young Count von Altenburg and his entourage traveled along their route at the sober gait of a man as he travels towards matrimony. As they entered the mountains of the Odenwald, they were attacked by a gang of stragglers. The Count defended his party bravely, but received a mortal wound before the robbers were driven off.
Oh dear.
He was conveyed to the city of Würzburg and a friar summoned. With his dying breath, Count von Altenburg begged the friar to journey to the castle of Landshort and explain the fatal cause of the missed appointment. Unless this is done, I shall not sleep quietly in my grave.
Oh, go on, Mr. Crane.
At Castle von Landshort, the guests were seated at their tables, contemplating a mutinous raid in the kitchen, when the sound of a horn gave notice of an approaching stranger. The Baron hastened to receive his future son-in-law.
It's the friar. Come with bad news.
In the courtyard waited a tall, gallant cavalier mounted on a black steed. His complexion was pale, but he had a beaming romantic eye and an air of stately melancholy. The Baron was a little mortified that the young count should have come in this simple, solitary style. I am sorry to break in upon you thus unseasonably, began the suitor. The Baron was peremptory and deferred all conversation until the morning and led the way to the untasted banquet. The cavalier was seated next to the bride and seemed absorbed in admiration of her. She listened with deep attention, and when his eye was turned away, she would steal a sidelong glance at his handsome face, fluttering with a gentle sigh of tender happiness.
Poor dear, she's fallen in love with a spectre.
Hey, a spectre bridegroom.
At the stroke of midnight, the bridegroom heaved a deep sigh and took a solemn farewell of the company. They were all in amazement, the Baron perfectly thunderstruck. What? Going to leave the castle at midnight? Why, everything is prepared for your reception. Your chamber is ready if you wish to retire. The stranger shook his head mournfully and mysteriously. I must lay down my head in a different chamber tonight.
Aye, a marble tomb.
Brom, then what happened, Mr. Crane?
The Baron followed the stranger back to the courtyard where the black chargers stood, snorting impatiently. The stranger addressed the Baron in a hollow tone of voice. Now that we are alone, I will impart to you the reason for my going. I have a solemn, indispensable engagement. Why, said the Baron, cannot you send someone in your place? It admits no substitute, said the cavalier. I must away to Würzburg Cathedral. Aye, said the Baron, plucking up spirit, but not until tomorrow. Tomorrow you shall take your bride there. No, no, replied the stranger, with tenfold solemnity. My engagement is with no bride. The worms expect me. I am a dead man. I must keep my appointment. He sprang onto the black charger and dashed over the drawbridge in a blast, a frigid wind.
Oh my.
In the morning, the friar from Würzburg Cathedral arrived to relay the news of the death of the young Count von Altenburg, sending the whole castle into despair and confirming the Baron's ominous exchange in the courtyard with the spectre.
Oh, what about the bride, Mr. Crane? How did she receive the ghastly news?
Died.
Oh my.
Oh.
From grief, no doubt.
How?
She could not banish her beloved from her memory. She told her aunts she heard him calling to her from the misty moonlit fields below the castle, bidding her to join him. They began taking turns watching over her each evening, but one night, when her drowsy aunt carelessly dozed, the young Baroness slipped quietly from her chamber. The drawbridge closed. She waded across the moat to meet her ghostly love.
Oh, me, no.
And did she?
The next morning, they found her lifeless body floating in the black water below.
Oh, horrible!
Heartbroken, the Baron died from grief a week later, the Baroness joining him in death shortly thereafter.
Well told, Mr. Crane.
Oh.
Bravo!
Bravo.
Mr. Van Brunt, give us your story.
He's got quite a task to beat the schoolmaster's tail.
Yes, give us another scary one, Brom. Oh, indeed.
But he's up to it. I'll wager.
Mr. Van Brunt, I'll relinquish my claim and call it a draw if you like. I spoke in a fit of passion this morning, and I am not afraid to admit that I was certainly out
Your
of...
story was most effective, Mr. Crane. You kept almost everyone at the edge of their seats without question.
No, we'll call it a draw then.
Not on your life.
What?
I stand by my half of the bargain and accept your challenge with renewed vigor.
Ready, Brom?
Aye.
Let's hear your story, Brom Bones.
The schoolmaster's tale was chilling indeed, but it was a legend from another time and another land. Surely we here in Tarrytown enjoy more than our fair share of supernatural stories.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh,
Aye.
he's not
Truer
wrong.
words were never spoken.
Yes.
Many dismal tales are told of ghastly funeral trains, disembodied mourning cries, and ungodly wails heard near the great tree that stands here in the hollow. It's the ancient elm where the unlucky Major Andre was captured and later hung by the neck until dead for colluding with the cowardly Benedict Arnold.
Boo.
Baltus?
Some recount a woman in white that haunts the dark glen at Raven Rock, often heard shrieking on winter nights before a storm, having perished there in the snow.
I've heard her with mine own ears, I have.
As have I.
The chief player in my story, however, turns upon a favorite specter of these parts, the Headless Horseman of Sleepy Hollow.
Shh, it's the story I told you. Apologies. She's from Newark.
That explains it. I
Puritans.
The horseman has been witnessed several times of late patrolling the countryside. It's said he tethers his horse nightly among the gravestones in the courtyard.
Ooh.
On one side of the church flows a large brook among broken rocks and trunks of fallen trees. Over a deep black part of the stream, not far from the church, stands the old covered bridge. Though the Headless Horseman rides freely within the bounds of the Sleepy Hollow, his powers cease right at the foot of that very bridge, leading back here to Tarrytown.
Aye, past Van Winkle's farm.
And remember Olaf Brewer? How he met the horseman?
Aye, walking home from his sister's house up at St. Sink, alone like a lunatic. Served him right for what happened to him.
What happened to him?
Brower was trudging home through the hollow, half asleep from exhaustion, when he saw a sight that stopped him dead in his tracks. The horseman and his steed stood silent in the middle of the road. The black horse, snorting plumes of smoke and flame. Frozen in terror, Olaf Brower backed away cautiously, and when, in a flash, the horseman turned in his saddle to face him, or at least he would have, if there had been a head attached to his shoulders. The specter pointed at Olaf and then back to his charger, commanding that he climb up behind him in tandem in the saddle.
Oh, I have run like the wind.
A younger man would have, but Olaf Brower is not a young man. With no choice but to obey, Brower took hold of the ghostly glove, and the horseman jerked him up and behind him, and the horse reared, and Olaf grabbed the rider's cape, and they took off, galloping over bush and brake until they reached the bridge. Without warning, the horseman pulled his steed to a halt, turned and grabbed old Brower by the scruff of his coat and hurled him into the brook, and then sprang away over the treetops in a clap of thunder.
He wasn't hurt, was he, old Brower? Huh?
Turned his hair white as snow from fright.
'Twas a warning. He'll not make that mistake again.
I'm not telling you my
absolutely.
story yet. The time when I met the horseman face to face.
You've seen him?
Oh, aye.
Were you afraid, Brom Bones?
What man wouldn't be, I ask you, but I didn't dare show him my fear.
Oh, when was this? Recently?
In fact, it was a year ago, this very night, All Hallows Eve.
On the way home from our party?
Aye. I remember I left early and escorted you and your daughter home, Adam von Savage.
Ah, I remember.
And just as I left the farm, I cornered a bend in the road and heard the faint thuds of hoofbeats coming towards me.
Oh, what's that?
Oh, it's only Rip Van Winkle embellishing Brom's story.
With a fog, I couldn't see more than 3 yards ahead of me. I kept Daredevil at a steady pace. He thrashed his head to the side and shot me a frightened look. My Daredevil's not the skittish type, and I knew there was something afoot.
What was it?
Oh, just like old man Brower, I spied the jets of smoke and fire puffing from the nostrils of his steed. Thus, as his form took shape, his horse reared back on its hind legs, and a great clap of thunder struck behind, revealing his full, headless body.
Oh, Rip Van Winkle, if you dent my silver serving trays, I will horsewhip you.
A bit less of the theatrics, Brom. You've already got our attention.
Yes, sir. I bid that Hessian goblin let me pass. Quick as a whip, he drew his saber and he pointed it at me. Again, I entreated the horseman, let me pass. I've escorted an elderly friend home, and my only goal is to return to the Van Tassel farm without incident.
Wait. Did he just call me elderly?
You're 62 years old, Father. That makes you elderly.
No offense intended, Mr. von Savage. With no recourse and no way to pass, I had to think quickly. I'd heard a rumor that horsemen fancied drink, and back in the days before an explosion had separated his head from his torso. I proposed this challenge. Race me to the bridge, and if you beat me, I'll fill the flagon on your belt with the finest bowl of punch you'd ever tasted. The very one here at the Van Tassel party. The Hessian lowered his saber, signaling his interest. No tricks, no magic. It'll be a fair race or no deal. Agreed?
Oh, what did he say? I mean, what did he do?
The horseman sheathed his weapon, as if in thought, and then turned his torso and pointed a finger right at me. If I win, I pass freely through this hollow and I rest my head untouched, still attached to my body on my own pillow this very evening. After a moment, slightly in acknowledgement. and then steered his ghostly steed to stand beside mine on the road. It was dead quiet. I grasped Daredevil's reins tightly in my hand as I turned to that silent rider. He raised his hand slowly, deliberately, and then like a hatchet swung his arm down to commence. I kicked hard in the stirrups, and we were off like a bolt of lightning. I heard only the beats of Daredevil's hooves and assumed that I'd left the Hessian stalled at the starting line. But as I glanced to my side, I saw the horseman keeping pace, silently, in stride with Daredevil.
Ah, he was taunting you, Brom.
Then what happened?
We approached the glen, and the horseman leaned into his black charger, pulling past us. I kicked the stirrups, and I leaned beside Daredevil's neck, edging past. And as the bridge loomed large in my sight, the horseman began to pull ahead, a noose, a neck, a length. With a final merciless kick, I prodded Daredevil to the finish, and with an angry snort, we dashed ahead of the horseman, traversed the bridge, and flew like a hawk out the other side. I turned to glance just as the Haitian vanished in a burst of flame.
Hooray!
What about poor Daredevil?
Never been the same. Won't go anywhere near the hollow at night.
Poor creature.
But he saved your life.
Or what if you lost?
He'd have never made it back to the party alive.
Aye, that's probably true. Lord knows what would have happened if I'd lost that race.
Yes.
If I'd been on a lesser horse, say old Gunpowder, I'd have been done for.
True.
Isn't that the horse you rode here, Mr. Crane?
Yeah, yes, it is.
Yes, and the schoolhouse is right across the brook from the church bridge, isn't it?
Yes, as a matter of fact.
Brom, stop. You're scaring Mr. Crane. It will be fine, Ichabod.
Oh, apologies, Mr. Crane. Oh, wait, have you declared a winner?
What?
A winner in the contest of the story. I vote for Brum Bones.
Well, I vote for Mr. Crane.
Excelsior!
Now, Katrina, darling, it's your judgment.
They were both equally macabre stories. I say it's a draw.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Our agreement is officially nullified. No ill will, Mr. Van Brunt?
I believe that's unfair, Miss Van Tassel. Your audience demands a winner to this challenge.
Yes.
But if Katrina calls it a draw, then so be it.
Oh.
Oh.
Mr. Van Brunt.
You too, schoolmaster. But don't think for a moment that this is over. You have a dark and dangerous ride home, my friend. Watch your back.
There. You see, Mr. Crane, Brum can be civilized.
Seems like mighty worthy husband material, if you ask me.
Mother!
I could only be so blessed. But now's as good a time as any. Katrina Van Tassel, Mr. and Mrs. Van Tassel, would you have me as your husband and your son-in-law?
Brum Bones!
What's your answer, Cat?
I just don't know. Yes, I will. I do.
Yay! A look of absolute rejection washed the enthusiasm cleanly from Ichabod's face.
That is, if anyone were paying attention to him. All guests were focused on congratulating the happy couple and the proud Van Tassel parents. Ichabod turned and walked somberly toward the door. Young Rip Van Winkle alone noticed his pitiful retreat.
Crane passed baskets overflowing with ripe fruit and warm bread. On any other occasion, his pockets would be stuffed to overflowing, but the folds of the pedagogue's coat flapped empty, allowing him to move unfettered into the barn where old Gunpowder slept, upright and fully bridled, as dutiful plow horses are trained to do.
Ichabod pulled his spindly frame into the saddle, realizing all at once that his legs were too long for the stirrups. His knees jutted awkwardly up beside his elbows, serving to heighten his misery.
More experienced rider would have known to loosen the straps, but Ichabod Crane was anything but. Gunpowder, happy to be relieved of any painful jabs to his haunches, was doubly responsive to each flaccid tug of the reins, snorting curtly in acknowledgment.
As he guided Gunpowder down the road, Ichabod replayed the events of the evening in his mind.
What did I do wrong? Did I misread the signs of her affection?
Gunpowder listened dutifully as they clip-clop along, offering an occasional polite winnow in response.
Was I wrong in assuming? Oh, how could I have been so blind?
Indeed, blind he was, not with rage or passion or any such fiery emotions held by motivated men. It was the sorrowful emptiness in his soul that occluded his attention at the fork in the road.
The same divergence that had befuddled old Brewer in his frightful encounter. Minutes later, Ichabod realized his thorny situation, identifying each ghostly landmark mentioned in Brumbone's tale. The churchyard, Major Andre's tree, the dark, gurgling stream. Ichabod pulled Gunpowder to an abrupt halt, realizing he had made a wrong turn and a grave mistake.
The mist cleared to reveal a shadowy cavalier astride a mighty black charger. Ichabod turned cautiously, catch a sideways glance from the spectre. The hide of the ghost horse was streaked handsomely in beams of moonlight, like satin, yet ripped and tattered holes were scattered across the landscape of its form, revealing dusty yellow bones beneath its hollow skin. Its eyes glowed red and hollow, as if an evil ember smoldered within the center of its skull.
The horseman held his cloak tightly about his body. The hood of his cape covered what should have been a head, but offered only a shadow of recess. It wasn't until the schoolmaster broke the silence that the figure fully revealed itself.
What a start you gave me, good sir. I am the schoolmaster, Mr. Crane, just on my way.
Ichabod's voice fell silent in his throat as a pair of glowing triangular eyes turned their target to the trembling tutor. A jagged smile split sharply beneath, revealing a ghostly fire within. The horseman parted his cloak, at last divulging the horrific splendor of his person.
Like his steed, the Hessian's uniform was marred by great lacerations in the material. Pale yellow bones floated inside his hollow, dusty shell, an eerie red ember glow pulsing within his chest where a heart should have been. The hood fell to his back, at once revealing a gnarled, rotten yellow pumpkin perched where a head was once mounted. The heart-carved eyes and mouth of a jack-o'-lantern crawled and skittered across the foul face of the gourd, indicating its evil intent.
I mean you no ill respect, but are you, in fact, the Hessian horseman known to patrol this hollow?
The pumpkin-head nodded once in the affirmative.
Shall you allow me to pass home herein unharmed?
The horseman offered no reply.
Truth be told, I've been the butt of a cruel joke this evening. The girl I fancy rejected me for another man. What a fool I was. If I had the chance, I would go back and do it all over.
At the utterance of Ichabod's wish, the horseman drew his saber from his sheath, catching a glint of moonlight.
His ghostly mount reared on its hind legs as a flash of lightning crashed and the pearl of thunder ricocheted across the knolls of the hollow. The jack-o'-lantern lifted from the shoulders and body, hovering above the rider under its own ghostly power.
Gunpowder sprung immediately into a full gallop toward the church bridge. The horseman caught up with Ichabod in two great leaps, slashing his sword within inches of the schoolmaster's head. Ichabod kicked desperately at the stirrups as Gunpowder inched ahead of the Hessian towards the mouth of the bridge.
Single majestic bound, the horseman flew over and charged back at the schoolmaster. As the horseman neared, Gunpowder turned sharply back towards the churchyard. The schoolmaster felt a distant crack beneath the saddle. The horseman slashed again, missing his mark, bolted the opposite direction, and rounded back again towards Ichabod.
Crane felt Hans von Ripper's prize leather saddle slipping rapidly under Gunpowder's belly. In the blink of an eye, the saddle fell to the ground, leaving Ichabod riding bareback on the gelding's sweaty, spindly spine. He turned in horror to witness the horsemen's trample Van Ripper's precious leather heirloom.
Again, the Hessian took flight and landed to block their path. But this time, Gunpowder had learned the horseman's trick, rounded again and raced towards the bridge before the specter could bound again. Just as the ghostly charger leaped, the Gunpowder bucked and launched the helpless tutor through the air in the direction of the church bridge. Gunpowder veered sharply into the field, confusing the ghostly rider and his steed.
This moment of mid-air acrobatics was not wasted on Ichabod. He tucked his willowy limbs into a bundle rolled once and continued miraculously on his feet, running at full speed towards the bridge ahead. He heard the angry whinny of the horseman's charger, followed by the quickening sound of hooves. With all he had in him, Ichabod raced into the mouth of the bridge, across and out to the other bank.
Believing himself immune from the horseman's magic, he turned to face the specter, watching impatiently from across the bridge.
I've beaten you. I've beaten the headless horseman of Sleepy Hollow. Your magic has no power here.
Defiantly, the Hessian guided his charger onto the bridge towards the regretful pedagogue. The jack-o'-lantern's head hovered a full foot above his body, sporting a wry, evil smile. And with a final step, the ghost horse halted at the threshold of the parapet and stood there silent.
You can't do it. You can't do it. Brom Bones was right. You can't cross that line. I've beaten you.
As Ichabod bowed his head in relief, the horseman grabbed the floating pumpkin and hurled it splattering to the ground in front of Crane. The rider paused, then retreated across the bridge. The spot where the ruined pumpkin had landed began to glow. The timbers of the bridge began to shimmer, and from the center, a dark swirling vortex formed.
Ichabod felt himself pulled toward the spinning opening. He grasped desperately for the ground, but pulled aloft. A great crack of lightning struck, freezing the stunned schoolmaster in midair.
Crack! A bright flash and whoosh of air sucked the coat from Ichabod's back.
Crack! A second flash removed all but his boots and undergarments.
Crack! The third flash relieved him of those trappings as well.
Crack! The fourth sucked all the skin from his body.
Crack! The fifth consumed his muscles.
Crack! The sixth, his organs.
Ichabod was now a floating frame of pale bones, and with a final flash and a crack of lightning, crack!
Ichabod Crane evaporated into oblivion.
It was old Rip Van Winkle who discovered Gunpowder grazing casually the next morning in the dell near the churchyard. Having discovered Ichabod's cottage empty, Rip sought to retrace his friend's step from the Van Tassel party. At first, he thought nothing of the ruined pumpkin at the foot of the bridge, but the moment he found Van Ripper's precious saddle discarded and broken in the road, he sensed something ominous had happened. In vain, he called into recess of the Hollow for his friend.
Mr. Crane! Ichabod! Geoffrey! Where are you?
While Ichabod Crane's story of the spectre bridegroom posed parallels between Baltus van Tassel and Baron von Landshort, the demise of the fable's characters differed from its Tarrytown counterparts.
In truth, neither the era nor details of the schoolmaster's tale were as legendary as Baron Bones suggested, for the story of the spectre bridegroom was in fact
Real.
On the summit of Odenwald, a wild and romantic tract of Upper Germany, stood the castle of Baron von Landshort. The Baron had but one child, his daughter Martha. But nature, when she grants but one child, always compensates by making it a prodigy.
These relics and all the pride of our ancestors shall be yours one day, Martha.
The Lord in heaven has blessed us with you to carry on the Van Landshort legacy.
If not the Van Landshort name.
Alice, isn't Martha lovely this morning?
Quite so, Ellen. There is not her equal for beauty in all of Germany.
The Baron had a large soul, and it swelled with satisfaction at the consciousness of being the greatest man in the world around him.
There was a great family gathering at the castle to receive the destined bridegroom for the Baron's daughter.
Auf Wiedersehen, my dear. I must prepare to welcome our future son-in-law.
But what am I to do?
See to that. Make,
Now I'll figure it out, my love.
yes, thank you. I am off.
Alice, dear sister, Martha simply cannot wear a veil bedecked with Carlin thistles.
Ellen, mein Schwester, the Edelweiss will wilt and the petals will fall all over.
But this thistle is ugly and has prickles.
Ach, marriage, such a frivolous affair.
Alice!
But not too frivolous for our lovely niece. And what is this? You have chosen this dress yourself?
Yes, Auntie Alice, I took the liberty of making my own decision. Since you and Auntie Ellen were busy with the vital verdict of my veil.
My dear, you look as lovely as any bridegroom could desire.
The flutter of anticipation only heightened the luster of Martha's charms.
Baroness von Landshort was no less busied in preparations. She worried from top to bottom of the castle with an air of infinite anxiety.
Franz! Franz!
Yes, Baroness?
See to it that the plates are polished and placed in position.
Yes, ma'am. We are doing that now.
Oh, and Franz,
Yes, Baroness?
make sure the Davenports in the dining hall are dusted.
Of course, ma'am. I saw to it this morning.
Franz, one more thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, could you bring me some schnapps? I need to unwind a bit after all this work.
Already anticipated, my lady.
The young Count van Altenburg had been recalled from the army for the wedding and was on his way to receive his bride. He and his entourage traveled along their route at a somber gait that a man travels toward matrimony.
The first of many details that Ichabod Crane unwittingly omitted was this. While traveling on the road to Langshort Castle, the young count's entourage was joined by his friend and companion in arms, one of the stoutest hands and worthiest hearts of German chivalry.
What ho, my friend?
What is this, Herman von Stockenfaust? What brings you to this part of Odenwald?
My father's castle is on this road.
I has no idea. Where's your family located?
East of Landshort Castle.
Truly, that is precisely where I am headed.
Schloss von Landshort? For what purpose?
Marriage.
My deepest condolences, my friend.
But you must join me. You must be my best man.
Alas, I am not welcome there.
How so?
An ancient feud has rendered my families enemies of the von Landshorts.
Pity. So am I to go it alone?
Take heart, my friend. I will ride with you as far as Würzburg.
As they entered among the mountains of Odenwald, the cavaliers were attacked by a gang of stragglers in the forest. The soldiers defended their party bravely, but the young count was overpowered. Just as Herman killed the brigand leader, the robbers fled, but not before the count himself had received a mortal wound.
Herman, death awaits me.
Shall get you a doctor. My friend, hold on.
No, nein. Promise me this. Draw me to Langshort Castle and explain the fatal case of my absence. Tell my betrothed.
No, you will be fine.
Herman, unless this is done, I shall not sleep quietly in my grave.
But
unless this is done, I shall not sleep quietly.
At Castle von Landshort, the guests were seated at their tables, contemplating a mutinous raid on the kitchen, when the sound of a horn gave notice of an approaching stranger. The Baron hastened to receive his future son-in-law.
Welcome, Count von Altenburg. Your wedding guests await you. You come alone?
I am sorry to break upon you thus unseasonably.
Water under the broadridge, my good man. Come, let us feast.
But I have news of...
Tut tut. We can discuss the particulars later.
The Count was whisked to the banquet hall and introduced to the impatient guests.
Good evening, honored guests. Our groom has arrived.
The young Count was led forth to the blushing bride. He gazed on her for a moment as one entranced. It seemed as if his whole soul beamed forth and it gazed and rested on her lovely form.
Count Heinrich von Altenburg. Yes, this is our niece, Baroness Martha von Landshort.
Martha's moist blue eyes gave a shy glance of inquiry on the stranger and then cast down again to the ground. The words died away, but there was a sweet smile playing upon her lips and a soft dimpling on the cheek that showed her glance had not been unsatisfactory. It was impossible for a girl of the fond age of 18, highly predisposed to love and matrimony, not to be pleased with so gallant a cavalier.
Relax, good sir. She will not bite.
Alice, I'm sure the Count and Martha have much to discuss.
Ah, yes, we do.
The bride and groom conversed in a low tone. Martha's color came and went as she listened with deep attention. Now and then she would steal a sidelong glance at his handsome face.
The stroke of midnight, the cavalier heaved a deep sigh and took a solemn farewell of the company.
The hour signals my need to take leave.
What? What did he say?
Everything is prepared for your reception. Your chamber is ready if you wish to retire.
I must lay my head in a different chamber tonight.
The confused Baron followed the Count to the courtyard below, where the black charger stood, snorting impatiently. The stranger addressed the Baron in a hollow tone of voice.
Now that we are alone, I will impart to you the reason of my departure. I have a solemn, indispensable engagement.
Why? Cannot you send someone in your place?
It admits of no substitute. I must await Würzburg Cathedral.
Aye. Tomorrow you shall take your bride there.
No, the Worms expect me. I am a dead man.
He sprang on the back of his charger and dashed over the drawbridge in a blast of frigid wind.
Early the next morning, the Friar from Würzburg Cathedral arrived to convey the grim news of the death of young Count van Altenburg, sending the whole castle into despair.
Once again, we arrive at another story point where fact meanders from fiction. For in truth, as you have already discerned, the cavalier was no spectre, but Herman von Starkenfaust, set to fulfill the Count's dying wish. The next evening, as the castle slept uneasily with the disappointing news, Martha consoled herself high in the watchtower.
She spied a dark figure on horseback waving to her in the moonlight. She slipped quietly down the stairs past her sleeping aunts to meet her ghostly lover.
In truth, I am Herman von Starkenfaust. Count von Altenburg was my friend.
Why did you not reveal this last night?
Our families are locked in a bitter feud.
My father will understand, but did you mean what you said? Your words of love, were they part of the charade?
Martha, I swear on my sword that I love you. I did from the moment I laid my eyes on you. I will find a way, and we shall be married.
But fealty is a cruel burden. While the Baron and Baroness forgave the centuries-old feud, Herman's father would not relent. The great conundrum was this. If Herman chose to wed Martha van Landshort, he would forego his family title. Without it, Martha could not marry him.
An opportunity presented itself in the English colonies. A colonel under whom Herman had served offered conscripted services to the British forces occupying Quebec. Herman would be promoted to captain and earn the chance to reestablish his family name and title. Count von Starkenfaust agreed to his son's terms. If Herman completed a decade of military service, the Count would give his blessing and forgive the feud.
Promise you will write me every week.
I promise.
I shall wait for you, my love.
I love you.
And so it was that Captain Herman von Starkenfaust set off for the New World and the American colonies.
But what became of our schoolmaster? When last we saw him, he had been consumed layer by layer into the mouth of a giant vortex, spinning within the framework of a church bridge.
As it happened, Crane was deposited unharmed precisely back into the hamlet of Tarrytown, the cozy Dutch settlement on the shores of the Tappan Zee, which he called home.
Remember that this friend, old Rip Van Winkle, was searching the whole of Sleepy Hollow for him to no avail.
Because although Ichabod Crane had disappeared through the vortex and wound up exactly where he started,
He did not wind up exactly when he started.
The silky web of time and space had folded back on itself.
As if a captive moth, desperate to escape, had perturbed the weave,
Whilst the silent arachnid host worked to mend and smooth the fabric.
Never quite restoring the original perfect pattern, for it was in the heart of Tarrytown, at Jonathan Doolittle's King's Tavern, that our twisted tales continue.
On the carved sign above the door, the smiling face of King George III, his red crown cocked slightly askew and scepter held bravely in his right hand.
As was proper.
and in addition to the name George carved neatly beneath,
the word king
God save him.
was carved expertly above the rosy checked figure.
featured on both the east and west sides of the sign, so that comers and goers alike could find this bastion of quaint Dutch hospitality.
On the flagpole above, a tattered banner of crossed red and white woolen stripes.
Floated above a field of navy blue, the Union Jack, standard of the British Empire.
Doolittle's Tavern always hummed a busy, bustling, disputatious tone. But this afternoon in particular, a serious-looking fellow, his sweaty hand clutching a well-worn copy of Farmer Tree's Thoughts, was haranguing vehemently about the support of the crown.
Protection.
Off with you! Oh.
Unlawful congresses and committees.
Mind your own business.
I was there in White Plains.
Listen, you troublemaker.
Get him now.
When all at once the scene was silenced by the abrupt entrance of an awkward, lanky man, skin as pale as milk, and a bundle of glining cloth wrapped around his middle.
Where's Rip Van Winkle?
Lazing about, no doubt. And you, Nicholas Vedder. I'll have some of your rabble-rousing here. None of it.
The day is coming. There will be a fierce reckoning for those who go against His Majesty King George.
Come, Nick, have a drink with us.
I'll not drink with the likes of him.
Somebody toss him out.
God save the king!
Oh, out with you!
Last chance to go peaceably, or I'll toss you out myself.
I'll see myself out.
Good riddance. And what did you want, coming in here half dressed like a lunatic?
Peter Vanderdonk, it is I, the schoolmaster.
You're not Master von Bummel.
No, not Van Bummel, Crane. And might I add that you are looking exceptionally fit today, sir.
Well, you look like you've been trampled by a herd of cows. Crane, was it?
Yes, I was in Sleepy Hollow last night on the way home from a party on All Hallows Eve.
Here, that's not until tomorrow night.
What? I attended myself. I rode gunpowder.
Gunpowder? What gunpowder?
What became of your clothes?
The horseman, he chased me.
What horseman?
The Hessian Spectre. The headless horseman of Sleepy Hollow.
Oh,
You now, good fellow. Come, let me buy you a drink. Calm your nerves a bit.
Does anybody know where Rip Van Winkle is?
Who's asking?
There he is. There's your Rip Van Winkle.
Rip! Rip, I'm not going crazy. Where's your father?
My father?
Mr. Crane, was it?
Jeffrey. No, Ichabod. Jeffrey Crane.
Well, which is it?
I don't know. I'm not myself. If I was in the hollow, I was in the hollow. He chased me across the bridge.
Who chased you?
And then a great gush of wind.
Joffrey?
No, the horseman.
The horseman's name was Joffrey.
What does that have to do with my father?
No. My name is Joffrey Ichabod Crane. I am the schoolmaster here, and I have had a very bad morning.
This horseman, you said he was a Hessian.
Yes, well, that's what I was told. I assumed he was Hessian.
Did he wear a tall hat?
No, no, he did not.
What do you know of my father?
He's a friend of mine. We spoke just yesterday after he returned home.
My father has returned home? But...
Stop, all of you. Either you're drinking or you're walking. Take it to a table or take it outside.
Prost. Let us have a drink, Mr. Crane.
I don't usually drink much.
It'll calm your nerves.
3, Peter. Thanks.
Now you keep him under control. And for heaven's sakes, cover him up.
Oh.
Here, Mr. Crane, take my cloak.
Thank you, sir.
Shall we?
Well, what are you doing in Tarrytown?
I'm not at liberty to discuss. I am recently arrived in the area from Quebec.
Quebec? Why, my grandfather was French.
You claim to be the schoolmaster, Mr. Crane, but I know for certain that Derek von Bummel is our schoolmaster here in Tarrytown. My children are both here there now in his classroom this very minute.
Oh, why on earth would there be class on a Sunday? And since when do you have children, Mr. Van Winkle? I had no idea. Who's their mother?
My wife, Maggie, of course.
But I thought that you were fixing your roof just yesterday with your father.
You keep mentioning my father, sir, but I tell you this. He's been dead and gone for 6 years now. I don't mention to get cross with you, but I miss him dearly, and I'll not have his good name made a joke.
Dead? That can't be. What day is this?
Monday.
And what is the date?
October 30th.
That's not right. October 30th is on Friday this year. I know so myself. It was the day King Henry VII of England was crowned in 1485.
Where is he? Where is that lazy, good-for-nothing you?
Maggie? Now, Maggie, I was just heading home, but these two gentlemen.
Judy? Rip?
Who's he? And why is he yammering on about our children?
Ma'am, Jeffrey Crane, school...
I didn't ask you. And who's this? What are you thinking? Are you signing up for the army now?
No. No.
You better not. We need you at home, Rip Van Winkle, and I mean now. Peter Vanderdonk, I thought I told you to send him home if he ever set foot in here again.
I want everyone...
Quiet. Now get home, you. I've been working in the fields all day. The least you could do is help me make supper.
Yes, Maggie. Captain, you'll finish telling me your story later?
Of course.
Off with you.
Captain.
Von Starkenfast.
Von Starkenfast. That's German, not Dutch.
True.
So, you're...
A Hessian. Yes. Please, call me Herman.
And you may call me Joffrey, please, Herman. I don't know who I am or where I am. If I'm not the schoolmaster here, I've nowhere to stay, and I seem to have gained 2 days.
Well, you're welcome to stay with me for the night. I have a spare bunk until you can get your bearings. On one condition, though.
Name it.
Tell me more about this horseman that you mentioned. The one who attacked you in the hollow.
Yes, of course. He rode an ebony steed of about...
No, not here. My quarters at camp, just beyond the hollow.
On the road to Saint Cynic?
Much closer than that.
Please, lead the way.
Good night, Herman. Watch him like a hawk. A loony one he is.
I think he's harmless. Do not worry.
Huh, that's odd. Where's the moon gone tonight?
What?
The moon. It was waning full last night.
No, sir. New moon tomorrow, by my calendar. Brombere.
Oh, you gave me a start. What's that?
Horse. Brombere.
Brom Bones?
Brombere. German for blackberry. Finest mare I've ever owned. Bought her with me from Würzburg. That's where I'm from. Is east of Frankfurt.
Yeah, yes, I've heard of Würzburg before. She's beautiful. Are we...
What? Riding her? Of course. Unless you would prefer to walk through the hollow.
No, of course, I only meant the saddle is small and I still ache.
There's a saddle row behind that you can sit on.
Oh.
I will not take long, Mr. Crane. And you can tell me all about your mysterious Hessian horseman. Gehen, shall we go?
Have you known Master Van Winkle for very long?
Only a few days. I passed his house on the roads the other day, and I saw him again in the tavern this evening. I'm sure I bore him to tears, droning on about my fiancée Martha.
Oh, fiancé. Congratulations. When's the wedding date?
It's still to be set, unfortunately. My business here takes me far from home.
Würzburg, was it?
Yes, our families, Martha's and mine, they are not friendly. I am here, earning my family's title so we can marry.
You seem wholly devoted, Captain. Is her family from Würzburg as well?
Yes. Her father's castle is north of there, von Landshot.
What did you say?
Von Landshot Castle. They are...
And of the Katzenellenbogen family.
You certainly know your German families.
No. This can't be right. The von Landshorts, they died out. They were a fairy tale centuries ago.
No, sir. They're real. I've met the Baron and Baroness myself.
But Count von Altenburg?
How do you know him?
He died on the road, attacked by brigands.
Whoa. How did you know that? I have not told that story to anyone, not even...
Van Winkle?
How did you know?
Rip told me last night, wherever I was, but how did you know the story?
I lived it. Count von Altenburg and I served together in the frontier wars.
That was only 30 years ago, not centuries.
No, sir, it's only 5 years ago.
What is the date today?
What?
The church bell signals midnight, but I don't know the day of the week, and now I question even the month and the year.
It is today, Tuesday, October 31st, 1775.
1775. How can that be? I've lost not 2 days. I've lost 20 years. It's All Hallows Eve again?
Well, yes, tomorrow evening, tonight, later, after today.
Pray, are your quarters much further, Captain?
Just ahead.
Oh, my.
Wolves, Mr. Crane, not spirits.
Yes, only wolves. Perhaps we should hurry ourselves indoors.
And Herman von Staukenfaust and the schoolmaster Ichabod Crane
Jeffrey!
slept a restless sleep in the commander's quarters, each puzzled by the events of the evening before.
In his farmhouse, Rip Van Winkle made an uncomfortable bundle in front of the fire, his good dog Wolf laying faithfully behind him. Both had been banished from the bedchamber by the angry Dame Van Winkle. Neither Rip, nor Wolf, nor Maggie Van Winkle imagined that this would be the final opportunity the three of them would have to share in the comfort of their communal slumber.
The arrival of a German soldier in Tarrytown had not gone unnoticed, as the presence of foreigners rarely does in a place where very little happens. And it was within the idle minds of bored petty men that wholly unrelated nuisances,
such as not understanding a person's accent,
or having a smaller portion of roast beef than the man beside you,
or not owning a shiny engraved sword,
or a beautiful black war horse,
or being Lutheran rather than Anglican,
gathered together to form an eventual hatred of the source of those discomforts. Such was it with old Nicholas Vedder.
Foreign sellswords, mercenaries. Come here to take our land, that's what it is.
Perhaps it was because he was never married.
Perhaps it was because he had always felt uncomfortable in his own skin.
Perhaps it was because his parents had died.
leaving him orphaned at the age of 15.
Or perhaps it was because he often heard voices in his head and saw things that others did not. That old, lonely Nicholas Vedder chose to seek out the aid of forces beyond his control
Or understanding
to assist him in his crusade against the uprising of the American colonists.
On his person, he carried a gray bit of flint formed into the shape of a cross,
which Nicholas believed to be a holy relic,
but which had in fact been carved by a board-finished sailor who had given it to the young Knick decades earlier, no doubt weaving some intricate and fantastic tales suggesting its holy origin.
His second and most dangerous possession was a small pouch on a leather cord around his neck, containing a powder of nightshade, cocoa leaf, and poppy. A mere dram of the dust slipped unnoticed into a draught of ale or cup of tea could put a grown man into a deep slumber for hours.
as he had done on other nights when the voices in his head needed a mouth from which to speak. He carved a face into a large hollow melon, placed a candle inside, and bowed his head in meditation.
I'm here.
Nicholas Vedder.
Yes. Yes?
You know why he's here, don't you?
He's here to investigate the raising of foreign militia in Tarrytown.
And where are they headed?
To New York. They're going to attack New York from the north.
And what must you do?
I must stop him. But how will I do it? What do I use?
Do you remember what we gave you?
Yes. Yes. The holy relic.
And what else?
I can't remember.
Yes, you do. Calm yourself. You remember.
The elixir. Yes, the elixir. But how do I use them?
You will know when the time comes.
But how do I stop them?
Must destroy the messenger.
Must destroy the spy and end his unholy plan.
It will burn down his barracks.
That won't be enough.
I will blow it up.
Yes, that would stop him.
But where do I get enough gunpowder?
There is a man you know who can...
The Frenchman. Yes, I will steal it from him. Then I will take the elixir and the relic, and I will destroy the spy and his evil plot.
You have figured it all out.
I have figured it all out in the name of His Majesty King George III.
God save him.
Nicholas pulled the leather satchel from inside his shirt, wet the tip of his pinky finger, dabbed it gingerly into the dust, and then back into his tongue, reveling in the divine bitterness of the powder. Cinching it tightly, he stowed the bag within the confines of his chiton, then breathed a deep, fluttering sigh of accomplishment.
Plot loosely woven together, Nicholas Vedder sank into a deep and comforting sleep, relieved that the voices had given him direction, purpose, and finally peace.
Whether it was guilt or his uncomfortable accommodations, Rip did not rest well that night. Seeking a peaceful detente, he arose before sunrise to craft a hale and hearty breakfast for his wife and children.
What is all that racket in there, Mr. Van Winkle?
A surprise, my dear.
I don't like surprises, Rip.
Come out when you're ready, Maggie.
With a loud hiss, the pervasive scent of smoked pork belly wafted through the Van Winkle cottage, bringing with it an appeasing air of atonement. In less than a minute, the entire household had joined Rip in the kitchen, each with a face full of hungry anticipation and tacit forgiveness.
Is that bacon, Father?
So it is, Judy.
But where did you get it?
Never mind that. Now go wash up the both of you. Breakfast is almost ready. Ready for breakfast, my love.
Here, what are you up to, Rip Van Winkle? Is this an apology? Because I'll not accept it, if that's your game.
Can a man simply cook breakfast for his family, particularly his lovely wife?
Don't think I've forgotten you spent half the day in the tavern, leaving the children waiting at school.
Here, and there's a crock of worm treacle beside the fire.
Oh, can I have some treacle?
Me too, Father.
What do we sing first? Come, Maggie, start us off.
Not this morning, Rip.
Phineas, Panicus, poor man peasant.
Woodcock, partridge, quail, and pheasant.
Stuffed with peas and carrots, please.
There's nothing else more pleasant.
Fetch some treacle now and eat up, eat up. Big day of school for the both of you. Schoolmaster Van Bummel demands well-fed and well-rested young minds in the classroom. None of those shenanigans from either of you. Don't want you to be like that wily Brom Van Brunt.
Oh, he's not so bad.
Don't talk back to your father. You'll do as your father says.
Yes, ma'am.
Not me, to your father.
Sorry, Father.
That's fine, son.
So, you'll be helping me gather the last of the squash, turnips, and melons? I suspect we'll sell lots of them today before All Hallows Eve. Everyone's carving up stingy jacks.
Of course, my dear.
Of course, my dear. But what?
I've got to get up into the hills for felling. They're teeming with quail, pheasant, turkeys, guinea hens.
And when were you expecting to leave for this adventure?
After breakfast.
So all of this is so you could go off into the hills all day while I work the farm by myself again. You are a bit of work, you are.
No. I'll stay through the morning till 10.
Or noon?
Or noon. Children, finish up and get ready for school.
Yes, Father.
Maggie, if I bring back a load of birds, Baltus Van Tassel offered me good money for every turkey I bag. Nearly double for a tom.
Baltus Van Tassel has no need for turkeys. He's already bought what he needs for the season. You have missed the boat.
None such. He fancies them. He brines them, then grinds them for sausage. His man Dory sells them at the docks for sailors. Good business it is.
You could take a lesson or two from him.
Indeed, so I'll be leaving mid-morning. It's a long walk up to the hills. I'll take Wolf with me. You know how he hates to be away for dinner. He won't let me be late, will you, Wolf?
We are ready, Father.
That's a good boy, Rip. You too, Judy. A good breakfast in you. You'll have to walk home by yourselves from school. I'm off hunting until after dusk.
Father, promise me you won't shoot any quails. I love quails.
Quail, not quails, Judy. Come. You'll stay with your brother all the way home from school now. Rip, don't run away from your sister. Your father will join us here this evening. Won't you, Rip Van Winkle?
Yes, ma'am. I'll take them. So, do I have your permission to go?
You don't need my permission, Rip. Promise you'll bring a bag of game home for Van Tassel.
A whole bag full.
Oh, and bring me back a whole guinea hen. I can eat a whole guinea hen myself, but no one ever lets me.
Yes, I'll bring back a whole guinea hen for you, and I promise not to shoot any quails, because Judy loves them.
Whale.
Here, I'll take them. You get your gun, your grog, and get an early start on it. But be home by supper.
What about the farm?
There's just enough for me to handle. I can get it all packed and outside by the road before morning rush. Now, you promise, back by dinner.
Promise, Father.
I promise. Come along, Wolf.
If it were as simple as promising to come home, Rip Van Winkle would have surely obliged. But nothing is assured when dark forces are at work in Sleepy Hollow.
As a career soldier, Captain Herman van Starkenfaust was a light sleeper. He roused the schoolmaster early, producing a trunk full of spare uniform components as temporary clothing until more suitable accoutrement could be secured.
The horseman's uniform was like mine.
In nearly every detail, except his was in disrepair. Great gashes and holes showing through
Yes.
his bones beneath.
Bleeding?
Not a spot of blood on him, or in him, I suspect.
And he wielded?
A saber, yes, just like yours.
But he wore no helmet.
Well, how could he? He had no head. A floating, rotten old pumpkin was his capitulum.
Mr. Crane, it is not my place to prove or disprove you yourself have witnessed. But you must agree that this is beyond the bounds of reason.
I know, but Captain Herman, you must believe me. What I saw was real. I'm certain it's the very reason I'm a stranger in my own town. And if the war never happened, King George still reigns over these colonies.
I must confide in you, Mr. Crane, with a matter of deepest importance. Foreign support is the key to victory against the British. I've asked Montgomery to send a formal request to the French.
But what of your fiancée?
I will send for her after the war.
If you survive it.
I hope to. My contract has access to French munitions, which allow us to tip the balance of power here in New York.
Oh, you will.
How do you know which has not yet happened, Mr. Crane?
For me, it already has.
Well, then tell me, what becomes of Montgomery?
Oh, me. General Montgomery, he dies, but in 2 months' time, December 31st of this very year, the siege of Quebec. The Patriots win the battle, but lose their beloved commander.
And do you know what happens to me?
I don't. My historical texts cover only major battles. Rarely do they provide details.
Such is the fate of a lowly German captain. I understand.
But neither have I heard tales of your demise.
I suppose that will have to be enough for now. Wait, what about the fairy tale?
The fairy tale?
My story. The one Rip Van Winkle told you. What becomes of Martha and me?
I do not know. In the story of the Spectre Bridegroom.
The Spectre Bridegroom?
Yes, that's the title, but no mention was made of a comrade to the doomed Count von Altenburg, only that his betrothed... Oh.
What? Mr. Crane. Geoffrey, you must tell me.
The story tells that she died.
How?
She drowned in the moat going to find her ghostly lover.
I see. And her parents?
The entire family wasted away from grief. The castle was left to ruin.
I don't...
Herman, it's just a story.
But do you not see? She never met Count von Altenburg. She met me.
What?
It was I who rode in the castle von Landshut that fateful evening to deliver the news of my friend's death. Not his ghost.
And Martha, your Martha?
Martha von Landshut. She and I are to be wed. But our families are locked in a bitter feud. My father agreed to grant me my lands and title after 10 years of service. He gave no stipulation under whom I must serve, so as long as my service tenured a decade. Martha will wait for me. I write her every week, and her replies give me life. I keep her letters here inside my coat next to my heart.
Then there is hope, Herman.
But I fear I shall not survive this conflict. What will become of her, of her parents, if I do not send for her? If I perish?
That will not happen. You have a purpose here, and I think I've been sent here to help you. This was no accident.
How? How will you help?
I've yet to decipher that puzzle. You mentioned you have a contact, a Frenchman who will assist you.
Yes, Cadena.
Louis Cardinier?
Yes. You know him as well?
Not well, but you and I know someone who does.
Who?
Young Rip Van Winkle. He lives in the barn of his sister Judith's farm And she's married to Lewis.
Well, perhaps when she is old enough.
What?
Judith Van Winkle is a mere schoolgirl.
Yes, I've lost 20 years, I forgot.
And her brother, young Rip Van Winkle, as well.
So the man I met isn't Rip Van Winkle Jr.
No, he's Rip Van Winkle Sr.
Rip Van Winkle Sr., 20 years younger and still destined to... Oh, me. Oh, me.
But
I think I'm here for an even greater purpose. I'm not here to help only you. I'm here to fix things, which must not happen. Come, we must find Rip and Lewis.
While Captain Herman von Starkenfost weighed the implications of the schoolmaster's predictions, Nicholas Vedder had begun to set his plans into motion.
Vedder had discovered Louis Cardinier was smuggling French gunpowder in through Tarrytown, being an ardent supporter of the king. Nicholas Vedder knocked angrily on the door of Brom Dutcher's farmhouse.
Hello! Is anyone home?
Who goes there?
Nicholas Vedder.
A handsome young Frenchman appeared at the cottage door. Old Nicholas Vedder had watched Louis Cardinier from afar on many occasions, but his sudden proximity to the charming young Gaul caught him off guard.
What do you want?
Frenchman, I know what you're up to.
And what is it that I'm up to?
You're hiding something in Brom Dutcher's barn.
And what is that?
Gunpowder. Kegs of French gunpowder.
Mr. Vedder, clearly you have a rough night at Doolittle's Tavern. Good morning.
You can't hide from me, Frenchman. I know about your treasonous plot.
Nicholas Vedder, what are you shouting about?
Rip Van Winkle. I was...
Has Brom Dutcher returned home? Shh. Wolf, go lay down.
No, I have business here with the caretaker herein. Where are you off to?
Hunting. In the hills, pheasant, turkey, whatever I can catch. What is it you said about gunpowder?
No, nothing. Oh, only I need to purchase some gunpowder. I was thinking of taking in a bit of hunting myself.
Lovely day for it.
Woo!
That is Washington's plan.
Rip, I'm glad you're here. I have important news.
Where are you off to, my friend?
Well, as I was telling... Oh, where did he go?
Oh.
Louis!
I already told you. Oh, it is you.
May we speak with Louis Cardinier?
This is Louis Cardinier.
Louis, but you're,
And who is this?
Geoffrey Crane. He can be trusted. May I speak with you privately?
Yes, that nosy old man was just here. Come inside.
Geoffrey, are you coming?
Yes, in a moment. I must speak to Rip about...
Yes. I will be inside.
Dog noise. Rip! Rip, my friend, I have something to tell you that you won't believe. Even I don't believe it.
Wolf, go lay down. What is it, Mr. Crane? You look shaken, even more so than when you stumbled into the pub yesterday.
I know things that are going to happen.
What?
You must not go on your hunting trip today.
Why not? Even Maggie has bid me go. And that's no small feat, let me tell you. I'll be back before sundown.
But you won't.
What? How do you know?
I don't understand how or why I came to be in Tarrytown yesterday morning. I only know that I am not from here. Even though I know many of the places and faces herein, I am out of place.
Let me put down my gear.
Yes, of course. Let me help you.
So, you don't want me to go to the hills today to hunt game?
Correct. Great danger awaits you there. I fear you shall not return.
Wolf, quiet. But how, Mr. Crane? Am I attacked by savages?
No.
Do I fall and break my neck?
No.
What then?
Well, as I was told it,
The schoolmaster began to regale young Rip Van Winkle with a fantastic tale of strange bearded men, a game of ninepins with balls that rumbled like distant thunder, and a rather potent keg of Dutch ale.
While Rip's initial instinct was to shrug off the story as the ramblings of a deranged fool, he instead listened intently at every word that floated from the schoolmaster's lips.
Little did he know, but Rip would go on to tell this story time again in Doolittle's tavern,
Piquing the supernatural imagination of both young and old alike. But it was this first telling, as morning turned to afternoon on a breezy fall day in 1775, that Rip's story caught the imagination of the most superstitious
and supercilious figures in all of Tarrytown. Nicholas Vedder.
Calm yourself, Bromberry.
Wolf, what's gotten into you? Leave that horse alone. You were saying, Mr. Crane.
for as enraptured as young Rip Van Winkle was to hear his fate,
and for the schoolmaster to recount it,
it was Nicholas Vedder who understood what he must do. Removing the cork from Rip's canteen, he loaded an unhealthy dollop of his nightshade powder into the grog inside. Recorking it firmly, Vedder quietly sloshed the contents about, mixing it into a potent potable. He silently set the wineskin down beside Rip's rifle and concealed himself anew.
as Geoffrey Crane finished his story, he glanced up for acknowledgement by the young Rip Van Winkle.
And that is why you must not go into the hills today, for you shall not return for 20 years.
Mr. Crane, you're a man of science, yes?
Yes, I will be.
Then surely you'll see all of this as...
Fantastic. Yes, I agree, but...
It's too much to be believed.
Yes.
I'm tired of being a man every person in town calls the layabout, the lazy man. I'm not.
I know. You told me yourself that you bought your home outright from old, what's his name?
Van Houten, but I never told you that.
You will tell me in 20 years' time. I know you're not the man people say you are, but if you go off tonight, there will be no one to show them who you truly are. Only you can do it.
And that's why I must go. If I could bring back a sack full of game, I'll show everyone what I'm made of. It's a fresh start.
Rip, please.
My mind is made up, schoolmaster. I'll be home by nightfall. You'll see. They'll all see, too. They're wrong about me. Come along, Wolf.
Oh, wait. Rip Van Winkle, if I cannot convince you to stay, promise me this.
Aye?
First, if you do happen to hear peals of thunder or see strange bearded men, run away immediately.
That I can swear to you.
And drink no beverage other than what you have already brought with you.
Aye, that is, well, I promise.
And if your fate still befalls you 20 years from tonight, All Hallows Eve of 1795, meet me in Sleepy Hollow and prevent my journey down this path.
I promise you that, my friend. I must be off. Day is slipping away. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Ah, come, Geoffrey. We haven't a moment to lose.
What?
Louis says we have already been found out. We must move it quickly.
We must move what quickly?
La Poudre.
How?
Shh.
There are eyes and ears about.
Louis, get it ready. Louis has a wagon full of French gunpowder, which I am to deliver to Lafayette's messengers this evening.
Where?
In Sleepy Hollow. They will meet us at midnight in the glen. They cannot risk being seen by daylight.
But how will you know it is them?
A few will be on the road this evening.
It's All Hallows Eve.
Perhaps. But we cannot risk leaving it here. I fear old Nicholas Vedder is rounding up Tory sympathizers to break in and steal it for themselves. Come, Brombearer. Louis, help me hitch her up.
She's a war horse, not a workhorse. She will not like this.
Here, girl. Shh. I need your help. You are the only one who can help us. Will you help us, girl? You help me? You are good girl. That's a good horse. She's ready, Louis.
You, schoolmaster, why are you staring at me? The captain told me. You know what becomes of me.
I do, some of it.
Do not tell me. It does not matter. Things can be changed.
I hope you're right, Monsieur Cadena.
Mister, Captain, you must go now.
Come, Geoffrey.
Yes.
And Louis, you're certain they will be there?
Yes, they will be there.
They must.
Careful, Captain. I've no doubt this cargo can behave unpredictably.
Only when fire is involved.
Yes.
And schoolmaster.
Yes?
Give me a name.
A name? Crayon. My name is Geoffrey Crayon.
No, not your name. The name of someone important I will meet.
What?
I do not want to know my future, but perhaps a little hint would not hurt.
Judith.
Yes? How are you going
to go find him?
Who?
She will know.
Judith. Judith.
2 traitors taken care of. 2 more to go.
Lost in thought, Louis Cadena didn't immediately notice the flame behind him until they had grown into an angry conflagration.
Thick billows of smoke filled the barn as Louis desperately sought to find a way out, banging helplessly at the great wooden doors.
As it happened, on this otherwise cool but pleasant October afternoon, the Van Winkle children were on their way home from school.
Come on, Rip, don't dawdle. Mother needs our help until Father gets back.
Oh, Judy.
Hello? Help! Help me, please!
Judy! Fire! Look!
Young Judith Van Winkle mused curiously at the tongues of black smoke creeping through the cracks between the barnwood. But young Rip Van Winkle Jr. heard Louis Cadena's muffled pleas for help.
Hello? Who's in there?
Louis, open the door, please. It is blocked.
Young Rip's aversion to attention caused him instinctively to back away, unsure of what to do.
Judy immediately ran to the barn and began pulling frantically at the wood beams across the door.
Rip! Rip, come help me move it!
I can't.
Rip, no! He'll die if we don't open this door!
Mustering all the strength that her 7-year-old frame can manage, she pushed hard against the beam.
Please open.
Rip, push hard! One big push. On the count of 3.
1, 2, 3!
The roof of the barn began to buckle under the heat of the flames as Louis Cadena pushed through the door. His clothing ablaze, he grabbed the Van Winkle children and collapsed to the ground. The sudden gasp of air fueled the flames into a mighty inferno, engulfing the barn in a massive heat and smoke that drew concerned neighbors.
Rip, go get some water! He's on fire!
Form a bucket brigade down to the creek.
Somebody get a doctor! He's been burned! It's all right. It's out now.
Get some water on it.
It's too far gone. Move away from it. It's too far gone.
The townspeople watched as Brumdetcher's barn collapsed in on itself in a final gasp of light and smoke.
Louis Cadena considered the eyes of the young angel who had saved his life. His face and body were badly burned, and his voice was hoarse from the choking torrents of smoke.
You saved me.
Shh! Don't talk. You're hurt. We'll fetch you a doctor.
You saved my life.
We did. My brother and me.
Heroes are what you are.
Rip? Judy! Oh, thank the Lord you're both safe.
Mother, he's hurt. He needs a doctor.
Come here. We need to get him to a doctor.
Take him to my house. It's just across the way.
Who are you?
Judith Van Winkle.
Judith.
Let's carry him.
You two were very brave. Wait till your father hears how brave you were. You weren't hurt, were you?
No, Mother. I heard him yelling, and Judy started pushing, and I just jumped in with all my might and pushed that big piece of wood out of the way.
You're a brave little man. Your father will be so proud. And you, my sweet little girl, you saved him. You saved him.
Will Father be proud of me?
Of course he will.
Will the man be okay?
He'll be fine. He needs lots of rest and time to heal.
May I bring him flowers and cheer him up?
Not today. The doctor will help him now. But flowers, yes. Yes, Judy. I think he'd like that. I think that'll help him heal.
And can I visit him too?
Yes, soon, perhaps tomorrow, but we've got to get home and clean up for Father. He has a load of birds to clean, so we need to get things ready, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Rip Van Winkle was not a particularly experienced hunter.
But on this lovely fall day in October, there was a newfound drive in his heart, and the golden sunlight blanketing the autumnal hills in a magical iridescence, and bounteous collections of turkey, pheasant, quail, and guinea hen teeming beneath, he had in fact collected more quarry than he had anticipated, and nearly more than he can carry.
He lowered his game sack proudly to the ground. Seeking to slake his neglected thirst, he rewarded himself with a brief respite on a smooth, stony perch overlooking the Hudson River Valley below. A low, smoky haze clung to the treetops before him, a remnant of the devastating fire hours before, which had transformed his children into local heroes.
But of course, Rip was oblivious to the events at Brom's barn, as the soggy mist that remained served only to mull his modest intermission. He lifted the wineskin from his hip and uncapped the vessel, noticing a wisp of powder around the rim. Dismissing it as a remnant of gypsum that knocked loose while hunting, Rip gulped down half the container.
Ah, a sip for you, Wolf.
Shrugging off his hound's disinterest, Rip drank the other half, emptying the bladder completely.
Must wait to carry home, eh, Wolf?
Then Rip stood and contemplated his trek back down the mountainside.
We've a good hour of daylight left. Best head back.
Was an unhealthy combination of nightshade, cocoa leaf, and poppy, which Nicholas Vedder had saturated within the wine bladder, that caused a constriction of the blood vessels in Rip Van Winkle's head, giving him the sensation of a low rumbling in his ears, like the sound of distant thunder.
Is that thunder? That's strange. There's not a cloud in the...
Wolf nudged desperately for his master to rise.
Oh! Oh! Oh!
Sensing no response, Wolf circled Rip in a panic and then darted back down the hillside for help, barking for anyone who would listen.
Oh!
Rip Van Winkle! Rip Van Winkle!
Rip Van Winkle! Rip Van Winkle!
Rip Van Winkle sat cautiously to identify the source. The peals of distant thunder pounded within his tender cerebellum, causing him to wince at each rumble. It took him considerable effort to stand, stumbling about like a newborn foal.
Wolf! Wolf!
Ah! As the hunter bent to pick up his musket, he spied a flash of color in the corner of his eye. He turned towards a previously undetected grotto in the hillside in which stood a strange figure.
Who are you?
On nearer approach, Rip was surprised at the oddity of the stranger's appearance. He was short, square-built, old fellow with thick bushy hair and a grizzled beard. He bore on his shoulder a stout keg that seemed full of liquor, and he made signs for Rip to approach and assist him with the load.
You want me to help you?
Again, the silent dwarf motioned to Rip, who complied with his usual alacrity. They clambered up a narrow gully, and as they ascended, Rip continued to wince at the long, rolling peals of distant thunder, seeming now to issue from a deep ravine between the lofty rocks on the rugged path ahead.
What is that noise? My head is splitting from it.
Passing through the ravine, they came to a small amphitheater, offering only brief glimpses of the evening clouds above.
What is this place?
On On a level spot in the center of a company of odd-looking little men were playing ninepins. They maintained a most mysterious silence and were the melancholiest party of pleasure Rip had ever witnessed. As he and his companion approached, the others ceased their game and stared at him with fixed, statue-like gazes.
I was just helping him carry whatever this is here.
Each was dressed in quaint, outlandish fashion of a similar style of that of the guides.
So, greetings. I am Rip Van Winkle.
One by one, each little man approached Rip Van Winkle, offering a silent nod, welcoming him, and some even extending a handshake.
Yes, pleased to meet you. Hello, hello.
Finally, the stout old gentleman who seemed to be the commander approached Rip.
Hello, sir. I am Rip Van Winkle. I apologize for intruding on your celebration. Your man here solicited my assistance, but I now must be off back home before nightfall, yes.
The leader ambled towards Rip, and without warning gave him a great hug as if the pair were lifelong friends.
I'm pleased to meet you two.
The leader motioned for the contents of the keg to be emptied into large flagons.
I cannot. I promised a friend I would not.
The guide motioned to Rip to wait for the others. Rip obeyed, trembling as each member of the troop quaffed the liquor in profound silence, and then returned to their game. Finally, the leader took his draught, guzzled the contents, and handed an empty flagon to Rip. And Rip's apprehension subsided when the commander allowed a warm, toothy smile of friendship to wash across his haggard face, nudging the ornate vessel, now brimming with golden lager, into Rip's hand.
I suppose one drink couldn't hurt.
Rip raised the stein to taste the beverage, which had the flavor of excellent Hollands. He was naturally a thirsty soul and was soon tempted to repeat the drop. The dangerous pounding in his head subsided as one taste provoked another, until his eyes swam in their sockets, and he fell into a deep and hollow slumber.
His die now cast, Rip Van Winkle was helpless to alter his destiny.
Twilight in Tarrytown brought concern to Maggie Van Winkle, having spent the afternoon consoling her children from the frightful events of the afternoon. Maggie Van Winkle's anger turned to concern when Wolf returned home without his master.
Wolf, where's Rip?
Mother, has father come home?
Soon, son.
He promised me a whole guinea hen.
Go back to bed with you. Where's your sister?
Gone.
Gone? Gone where?
To see the man.
What man?
The man who got burned.
Go back to bed, Rip. Now I have another to fetch. If your father comes home, tell him to stay put. You stay here, Wolf. Good dog.
Slipping in through the back window of Dame Van Eyck Helen's nearby farmhouse, 7-year-old Judith Van Winkle had never seen a person as badly burned as Louis Cardenier. As he drifted in and out of sleep, the persistent tension in his breath betrayed the excruciating pain he endured.
Must go find him.
You should sleep.
It is you. It's
Yes, now rest.
Judith. I could have died in that barn. Oh,
You're safe now, Mr. Sleep, Mr. Louis.
Just Louis. Judith, you must go find him.
Who? Who must I go find?
There is no one in there when I left.
Judy!
Mother, he's resting.
You had me worried sick. Come home now. Your father's not home yet, and Wolf's come back alone.
Must find him.
Mother, Louis says we must find father.
You? What do you know of my husband?
Judith must go find him.
I will not let my 7-year-old daughter go traipsing over the hillside on All Hallows Eve, searching for her father.
Mother, he says you must find him.
It will wait till tomorrow. Come home to bed with you, and you feel better.
Louis.
Louis, good night.
Mother, First thing in the morning, we must get Wolf and Mr. Van Tassel and some other men and go up into the hills to find Father. I know where his favorite hunting spot is, and with Wolf's help, we could find him in no time.
And so it was that Dame Van Winkle guided her pathologically philanthropic daughter home for the evening. The relief of finding Judy safe nearly overtook Maggie's emotions at several stops along the road back to the farm, but the chattering girls' enthusiastic plans for aiding Louis back to health and finding their missing patriarch helped her fight back the tears.
Father probably curled up under a pile of leaves or in a cave. He can be clever that way, you know. Mother, do you think Mr. Louis will feel better tomorrow? I hope he will. He's taking care of Mr. Dutcher's farm, and we should clean up the ashes and get everyone together to raise a new barn for him. Oh, I hope there were no animals in the barn. Oh dear. Oh, Mother, do you think there were any animals in there?
No, dear. Mr. Dutcher didn't keep any animals.
Good, because I was worried.
For it was this passion, the same drive that she herself had felt so often in her own heart, that Margaret Van Winkle now witnessed in the excited eyes of her daughter. Though she would not carry forward the Van Winkle name, neither would she carry on the apathy so often attributed to her father. For now, that was enough to nurture Dame Van Winkle through what would be a night of impatient waiting, hoping that her husband was safe and well.
Captain Herman von Starkenfaust and the schoolmaster Ichabod Crane.
Oh, for heaven's sakes, Joffrey!
Sat quietly concealed in a thick set just off the main road through Sleepy Hollow.
Why is it I constantly find myself in Sleepy Hollow in the middle of the night, waiting for something dire to occur?
Cheer up. Everything is going to be fine. You said so yourself.
No. In fact, I have no details on the event of this evening whatsoever. No mention was ever made of it in any of my history books.
That's because this is a covert operation.
Perhaps. But what if this is the night the horseman first appears?
Then he will have me to contend with. Brombira, we do not believe in spirited horsemen.
Someone's coming down the road.
A wagon. Louis was right. Quiet. Let us see who they are.
As the second wagon approached, Herman and the schoolmaster watched cautiously. A boy of 11 or 12 sat beside a hooded figure at the buckboard, driving a skittish gray colt. The boy, a broad-shouldered lad with short, curly black hair, stood and surveyed the hollow as the wagon rumbled to a stop.
See anything?
No, sir, not a sign.
What is it, boy?
The pony's skittish, that's all. Who goes there?
Captain Herman von Starkenfaust. Continental Army under orders from General Montgomery. Who are you?
Carrick van Bummel.
The schoolmaster?
Yes. Who are you?
Joffrey Crane, also the schoolmaster.
Two schoolmasters?
What town do you teach, Mr. Crane?
I'm seeking a new position.
Introduce yourself, lad.
Abraham Van Brunt, at your service.
Abraham Van Brunt.
Captain, I understand you have something there for us.
Ooh, we have waited for hours.
Brom Bones?
Brombiri!
We got the message just an hour ago. Your liaison was detained.
How old are you, Master Van Brunt?
12.
Brom is one of my most promising students.
We had to borrow a horse and wagon from Mr. Van Ripper.
What's the cargo?
Gunpowder?
French grade. Very powerful. Where are you taking it?
South to Kingsbridge. We'll have to ride all night, I suspect.
No school tomorrow?
No, All Saints' Day. If we drive straight through, we can be back before midday. Captain, should we swap wagons or shift the load?
The powder is safer in this wagon. Unhitch your colt and we'll swap wagons.
Brom, Unhitch. What's that horse's name?
He ain't got one.
Gunpowder.
Unhitch him and put him on the gunpowder wagon.
Herman, I think something very bad is about to happen. Things they're starting to fall into place.
And as suddenly as Crane had uttered the words, Nicholas Vedder appeared in the glen holding a flaming jack-o'-lantern.
Well, if it isn't a quartet of traitors. I recognize the Hessian and the lunatic, but what's this? Schoolmaster Van Bummel and his protege, Master Van Brunt? Out late on a school night?
What do you want, you crazy old man?
Schoolmaster, you've neglected to teach your student proper manners.
Ignore him, Brom. Hitch the horse. We must depart.
Go away, Vedder. This does not concern you.
But it does. It most certainly does matter. Anyone that stands against the crown is a traitor. God bless His Majesty, King George III of England, and may all those who oppose him perish by fire.
Herman, stop him.
Nicholas Vedder darted towards the wagon as if possessed, his silver hair and stout frame masking an agile and aggressive demeanor. The young colt Gunpowder reared in fright as Vedder approached with his flaming pumpkin. Herman leapt into Brombiera's saddle and rounded the gunpowder-filled wagon. Just as the colt sprang forward, Geoffrey Crane fell backward into the hay, watching helplessly as his reins fell to the ground.
Brom, watch out.
As Gunpowder sprinted, young Brum Bones grabbed the bridle and lifted himself up the horse's back. The wagon swung around, and Nicholas Vedders flung his flaming pumpkin atop the pile of straw, setting it ablaze. He was tackled at once by Derek Van Bummel and knocked unconscious.
Good one, schoolmaster.
Lucky I don't strangle you with my bare hands.
Mr. Crane!
The fiery wagon gained momentum, flying past the trees in the hollow like a comet. Crane swatted at the flaming mound of hay, frantically tossing handfuls from the wagon. Each tuft spewed an angry swarm of embers, igniting a half-dozen new flares in the straw beneath. Defeated, he turned first toward the frightened Brum Bones, clinging desperately to Gunpowder's neck, and then to Herman and Brombiera, gaining pace alongside the rolling inferno. In that instant, the schoolmaster knew what he had to do.
Brom!
Mr. Crane, there's no time, get on!
The boy! Take the boy!
I can take you both!
There's no time! Get him and get away!
Mr. Crane, jump onto the horse!
Go! Get as far away as you can!
Jump! I will cut the traces!
What?
Jump!
The schoolmaster leapt from the buckboard to Gunpowder's sweaty spine, landing solidly enough to grasp the horse's neck.
Wow, I am becoming a schoolmaster when I grow up.
With a single masterful slash, Herman cut through the leather traces and the flaming carriage rattled to a stop. They galloped across the bridge, pulling both horses to a safe stop on the other bank. A loud shrieking hiss emanated from the flames, spraying fire into the canopy of the hollow. An anticlimactic pop issued from the fiery wagon. The schoolmaster slipped down from Gunpowder's back and turned to face the conflagration. Herman dismounted as well, followed by the astonished Brum Bones.
That's it?
The wagon responded with an explosion that knocked them all to the ground, causing the timbers of the bridge to shudder and groan. Nicholas Vedder's charred jack-o'-lantern flew in a perfect arc through the air and landed with a splat at the schoolmaster's feet.
Not again.
The spot where the ruined pumpkin had landed began to glow. The timbers of the portal to the bridge began to shimmer, and from the center of dark, swirling vortex formed.
Herman, go to her. Go to Martha.
What's happening?
I've broken the spell. Everything is as it should be.
Crane was pulled aloft as a great crack of lightning struck, freezing him in midair. Crack.
I'll see you 20 years from this very night.
What?
Bright flash and whoosh of air sucked the coat from Ichabod's back.
Cover his eyes.
A second flash removed all but his boots and undergarments.
Crack! The third flash relieved him of those trappings as well.
Crack! The fourth sucked all the skin from his body.
Crack! The fifth consumed his muscles.
Crack. The sixth, his organs.
Ichabod was now a floating frame of pale bones, and with a final flash and a crack of lightning, crack!
Ichabod Crane evaporated once again into oblivion.
As it happened, the schoolmaster was deposited, unharmed, precisely back into the hamlet of Tarrytown, which he called home.
The fates found it in their hearts to return him fully clothed in the schoolmaster's vestments he had once worn.
Because although Geoffrey Crane had twice disappeared through the vortex and wound up exactly where he started,
He had at last wound up exactly when he started.
The silky web of time and space had not only mended itself,
it was more perfect than before.
The silent arachnid host waiting patiently in the corner of an errant moth to flutter by.
For it was in the groomy recesses of Sleepy Hollow, with the waxing moon floating high above the trees, the schoolmaster finally felt at home.
his comfort was short-lived, for no sooner had he exhaled, his steamy breath hanging heavily in the damp midnight air, but the sounds of an approaching horseman echoed through the hollow. The mist cleared to reveal a shadowy cavalier astride a mighty black charger. Crane turned cautiously to catch a glance of the rider. The hide of the mare was streaked handsomely in beams of moonlight, like satin. Her onyx eyes twinkled as a familiar winnow issued forth from her flaring nostrils.
The horseman clutched his coat tightly about his body, the hood covering his head, leaving it in shadow.
What a start you gave me, good sir. I am a schoolmaster, Mr. Crane, just on his way to...
Geoffrey?
As the horseman parted his cloak, the hood fell to his back, revealing at once the graying, weathered, and rosy-cheeked face of his friend.
Herman, is that you?
It's been a few years, my friend, but you look the same.
20 years, was I right?
You were right about everything. You saved us, you know.
Who?
Brambira and I.
From Bira?
Yes. She doesn't ride as much as she used to. Or tonight.
But how did I...
If you had not been there, here, on that night, Nicholas Vedder would have blown us both to bits.
What?
I would have become the Hessian Spectre.
The headless horseman. Tell me, what else have I missed? Did we win the war?
All is as it should be.
Oh.
Mr. Crane.
Oh. Louis, your face?
Judy saved me, just as you predicted. If she and Rip had not come along when they did.
I'm awake. I'm awake.
Rip!
Mr. Crane?
Did you...
Fallen asleep, yes, but not for 20 years. Judy and Maggie found me. I was asleep for days, but they nursed me back to health. Thank you, my friend. I could have died up there.
I'm glad for you. And who's this?
This is my wife, Martha.
Former Baroness von Landshot. Thank you, Mr. Crane, for bringing Herman back to me.
Louis, how is Judy?
She is home with her mother and our children.
Maggie and I have 3 grandchildren, and Rip Jr. is studying law at King's College.
Maggie is alive. I am happy for you, Rip. Herman, what of Nicholas Vedder?
Died a few years before the war ended.
Poor old man, so angry.
He's never right in the head. He died alone.
This can't be old gunpowder.
No, it's his grandson, Flintstock.
Grandson, but gunpowder was a gelding.
And such. He's grazing this very moment in old Hans van Ripper's field.
You are standing next to his grandmother.
Vera, a grandmother? And what of Brom Bones?
He is our schoolmaster ever since Van Bummel retired.
He married Katrina von Tassel 2 years ago.
Oh, and that leaves me no jobs, no prospects, and no place to live.
The Stockholm is yours for as long as you like.
Stark, you changed your name?
Wanted a fresh start for my family in the new country.
Mr. Crane, you must meet our daughters.
Daughters?
Yes, 3. And a son, Anthony.
There are folks at Doolittle's Tavern who would love to hear your tales, Mr. Crane.
It's time for a new beginning. If you can change your name, Herman, so can I.
Jeffrey Crane?
No, not Crane. Crayon.
Louis, you remembered. Jeffrey Crayon, yes.
Come, let's get you back to town. It is All Hallows Eve.
Indeed. Who knows what tales await me in my travels?
So it is here in the hamlet of Tarrytown, a cozy Dutch settlement on the banks of the Hudson River, that our untangled tales end.
Former schoolmaster Jeffrey Crayon would spend many lazy afternoons in Jonathan Doolittle's Union Tavern, trading stories with visitors to the newly formed United States of America. Tales he would scrawl lovingly into a thick sketchbook that he began carrying with him wherever he went.
Jeffrey would sketch fanciful drawings to illustrate his text, elaborate sketches of ruined castles rising above the moonlit forests of Germany.
The kind smile of a hen-picked husband and his dog, a half-dozen local children hanging happily from his back and arms.
Ghastly haunted horsemen chasing a spindly, frightened schoolmaster through the recesses of a wooded glen. A jack-o'-lantern held menacingly aloft, poised to knock the tutor into oblivion.
But it was the legends from lands far beyond that drove the former schoolmaster to embark on his own journey of discovery, seeking unheard sights and stories to add to his swelling journal.
On one such journey to England in the summer of 1816, Geoffrey Crayon spent 2 weeks with his friend, Sir Walter Scott, following his release of an 18-volume edition of the works of John Dryden, their favorite author.
While Lord Scott took great amusement in the schoolmaster's stories and sketches, he judged their light-hearted nature too steep a financial risk. His lordship already faced dire monetary difficulties and could not afford to publish the stories himself.
Thus it was fated that a young American writer, also from New York, was introduced to the now aging and erstwhile pedagogue, Geoffrey Crayon, who offered his prized portfolio to the prentice poet for perusal. Entranced, the young author read the entirety of the sketchbook in a single evening, pounding excitedly at the tutor's door next morning, and implored that he be allowed to publish them immediately and unedited.
His name was Washington Irving.